Bola de fogo da ponta do recado.
Get the rest of the defense off. Oh my word!
Perfeita.
4 in a row for Team Queso.
And here we go. The wait is finally over. The fall split of CRL West is here. It's the big split. It's the bad split. It's the one that sends teams all the way to the Clash Royale League World Finals this December in Shanghai, China. Hello and welcome. I'm Rich Slayton. Joining me, as always, my friend Andrew Guy to talk you through the action here in the Clash Royale League West fall split. And as I said, this is the one that sends those teams to the World Finals. And Andrew, we keep saying this every single season, and we keep being right. This feels like the most stacked set of rosters we have ever seen in CRL.
What's up, everybody? Dude, I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. But what's so crazy about it is that over the last few seasons, we've seen a lot of shifting of players, but this season, it's all about the rookies. There's so many new names on this competitive scene that I'm excited to see today. How's it going, everybody? You guys watching us on YouTube? Are you watching us on Twitch? We're on both right now. I'm going to be popping in and out, hopefully looking at the chat, but make sure you are following us on Twitch, subscribe to us on YouTube, and turn on the notifications on both. It's very important you turn on those notifications so that you know when we go live, which is every Saturday and Sunday morning at 10 a.m. But you can also follow us on Twitter at Esports Royale EN if you'd like. You can follow me at Andrew Guy. You can follow him at Rich Slayton. But most importantly, go follow Clash Royale on Twitter. There's tons of polls, there's tons of news. All the latest updates that you need to know are right there. Lastly, speaking of updates, Fantasy Royale is back. I've got 2 rookies on my roster, and I want to win those 100 gems. Wait, what? 10,000? No, 100 gems, 250,000 gold. Okay, so we're changing things up a little bit. Upgrade those cards, maybe start a few tournaments, a couple challenges, you know, but that's the idea. Rich, 2 rookies for me. How many for you?
Just 1 rookie for me, and we'll be seeing that rookie today. Very excited for a team entirely of rookies that we'll be seeing today out of Pain Gaming. And of course, a bunch of teams full of veterans. You talked about rookies, Andrew. There are 6 brand new players overall in CRL this season, 7 players from No Tilt League, which was happening concurrently for the semi-pro scene during CRL West in the spring season. So very excited to see how the larger esports scene for Clash Royale has been growing here in 2020 with the support of the entire Clash Royale team behind it. It's been very cool, and we're seeing the results right here this season.
You know, to steal one of your favorite sayings is iron sharpens iron, and it's 100% true. And this, what's been going on in the offseason has really been a testament to that. You look at the guys at the very top of the world, the S-tier guys, working harder every single day to stay at the top, because when you're hungry, when you don't have a team yet, those are the guys that you got to be looking over your shoulder for. So before we get into the matches, we do got to talk format just a little bit. Out with the new, in with the old. I think that's what they say. Is that what they say? We're going back to our old format. A lot of you guys were talking about how you wanted 1v1 to be the deciding set, and you wanted King of the Hill in the middle. So you know what, Rich? We listened.
Here we go. Best of 3 2v2 to start things off as always, and then, yep, King of the Hill in the middle. And I love this. It gives us a look at so many more players as we go through it, and then send out your champions for that BO3 in the end. And this is for the first 8 weeks for that round robin, as we are going all the way around, all 10 of our teams playing the other 9 throughout that 8-week run. And then, Andrew, back again, and I love this, a full BO5 of sets when we go into our playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. We're still going to start off both with 2v2, and then it's 3 1v1s. The last one is only if necessary, and lastly, King of the Hill also if necessary for a BO5 for our entirety of playoffs, just like what you guys saw in the spring, which is what a lot of people, a lot of pros, a lot of fans, and honestly a lot of casters have been really wanting to see here. So BO5 in playoffs, but right now for these matches this week, we are going to do the BO3 format, and we've got 3 matches every single day now instead of 2.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. I think 3 matches is a great number. We get a little last season. It felt almost like leaving you hungry for a little bit more. You didn't get your dessert. Well, now we do. We get that 3rd match. And today it's a great lineup. The defending world champions Team Liquid up against Cream Royale Betis, who have a new/old player coming back into the lineup. The rookies of Pain Gaming up against the defending Western champions in our 2nd match, Spacestation. And then finally, Team Queso. Talk about iron sharpens iron. Both IMJP and Ruben, 1 and 2 in the Bren Chong Cup, now coming here to revamp Team Queso for this fall split against last season's number 2 with 2 rookies as well from Misfits.
Yeah, an incredible performance by Team Queso in the offseason. Following that, tomorrow we'll be starting things off with Dignitas going up against SK Gaming. Then it'll be Tribe, who fell just a little bit short last season, going up against Chivas Esports, who really wants to put a stamp on the league this fall. And of course, as you just said, Misfits Gaming, our number 2 from last season, who fell to SSG, going up against the rookie squad who's pulling a doubleheader this weekend in Pain Gaming.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting, Andrew. Let's talk a little bit about our thoughts on today's matches. Yeah. First up, of course, that Team Liquid versus Cream Royale Betis one. Thoughts coming into this one? Do you think that the addition of Razor into Team Liquid, replacing Diego B, who moves to Chivas, do you think that puts them over Cream, who bring in a nasty head-to-head player in Michifu for today's game?
So looking at Twitter, I saw that Team Liquid took the poll results pretty handedly, but I'm thinking the big it factor here is the guy you were just talking about in Razor. Now, Diego B has been one of my favorite players for his entire career in CRL, but it really never felt like he had a true home on Team Liquid. He'd always come in certain moments and really kind of surprise you, but there's been so many guys that have been key role players in specific roles on their team for 3 seasons. It feels like Razor could be that missing piece for Team Liquid. I mean, they are our defending world champions, so maybe they didn't even have a missing piece, but also maybe now could be the time for Diego B to really establish himself as an S-tier player. Maybe he was overlooked for seasons with Team Liquid having so many other superstars. And then with Cream, how do you feel about them dropping Yarai, who was one of their best head-to-head players, and picking up Michifu, who was not signed last season?
Michifu was supposed to be on the team last season, and some events made that not happen. And I don't know if Yarai was brought in as a replacement for him, or if it was Diego E. Pedro was kind of an up-and-down signing, whether they would or wouldn't be able to put him on the team. So, I mean, I think that Michifu, it's hard to say that you've lost anything when you have Michifu being the guy who replaces Yarai, but Yarai does have a ton of experience. So, very curious about that one. And we'll see. Does Michifu, can he do what he does in the offseason here? If he can do that, it's a good upgrade in my opinion, even though Yarai is an excellent player in the competitive scene.
So here we go. Both squads tying at number 6, 2 and 3 on last season. Team Liquid facing off against Cream Royale Betis. Razor, the new sign, Igor, Canario, and Surgical Goblin coming out today for Team Liquid. Very excited to see what their lineups are going to be in 2v2. You have to imagine they're going to save Igor for that 1v1 set if necessary, and definitely King of the Hill.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you bring Razor in for his 2v2 experience, not to mention being a King of the Hill killer, giving you more flexibility in that set, but 2v2 is where Liquid has needed a little bit of extra help. Razor has the 2nd most 2v2 wins amongst any active player in CRL West, one of the best 2v2 players in the history of the game, a great addition to this team. And on the other side, Cream Royale Betis the same way, 3 returning players in Belican, Diego E, and X Pedro, but adding in someone as nasty and dangerous as Michifu, a top ladder player, first place finishes, great and competitive. I think he really helps round out this Cream Royale Betis squad.
Yeah, and it makes him a little bit more unpredictable. You have to imagine Pedro is going to be their best 1v1 guy from all the things we've seen him do in Bren Chong this year, CRL, Bren Chong last year. He's a very good head-to-head player as long as his internet is there to support him, which it appears it has been and has come to stay. That being said, throwing Michifu into the equation does make it a little harder to game. If Pedro is struggling, he is a guy that you could bring in to that 1v1 set.
Well, Michi also is one of those guys who he had his shot with Pain Gaming back in the fall season and didn't quite live up to the expectations. Had an okay run and was good in King of the Hill, but struggled elsewhere. And he's another one of those guys who took some time away, just like his 2v2 partner today in Diego E, who took some time away, sort of reinvented themselves, doubled down in the semi-pro scene, and now is back here with huge expectations.
So here we go. Razor and Canario banning Freeze for Team Liquid. Michifu and Diego E banning Musketeer for Cream Royale Betis. Just to talk numbers with you a little bit, as you were talking about Razor being one of the most celebrated 2v2 players, him and Canario, respectively, 57 and 58% win rates in 2v2. Diego E and Michifu, respectively, 42 and 33% win rates. So this is going to be a battle of what's on paper and actually what we see happen on screen.
Well, two people that you kind of forget about. I mean, everyone knows Razor as a 2v2 guy. People kind of forget to a certain degree that Canario, a big part of his first season in CRL back with G2 Esports, was being a great 2v2 player. 4-1 in sets, 73% win rate overall in the 2v2 set. He added an 8-1 run in the 1v1 sets-wise, 17-4 in games. But people kind of forget that he's a great 2v2 player, including that amazing run he put together with Surgical Goblin in the spring of last year.
So here we go, 2v2 match day 1. Cream at the top of your screen, Liquid at the bottom. All the player cams are live except for Canario's. His should be working very soon, probably by their next match, but I love that we can look at the reactions of these young men during battle. Razor looks like he could fall asleep.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably one of the things that when you bring Razor to this team, that's one of the things that I think he gives is a whole lot of relaxation. I mean, this is a guy who has always been known as a very calm, very collected player. Part of Misfits' success last season was the attitude he brought in. You can see here, he's just home playing Clash Royale and feeling as comfortable as ever.
Wow, so big lightnings on both sides of the board. One offensive, one defensive. It looked like Cream was going to get a nice little run through to the tower with that Lava Hound, Mini P.E.K.K.A, and E-Drag combo, but not going to happen today with the defensive lightning coming out from Liquid.
And the Inferno Tower is certainly going to be a huge help for Liquid in this matchup against these big Lava Hound pushes. So this one gets stopped just like the last one. As we go past the midway point of regulation time, that Baby Dragon might change the math. No, Team Liquid still just slightly ahead as we go into the second half of this match.
Yeah, both these squads just kind of feeling each other out. Clear that Cream is going to the skies with Lava Miner. Team Liquid still waiting to pull the trigger on their win condition.
Freeze is Freeze is not the craziest ban because of how popular Graveyard Freeze is in 2v2. Musketeer kind of new in the 2v2 bans here on the western side, but you understand why. She is one of the most used and most abused cards overall in Clash Royale.
It's just the fact that she does so much single target DPS, and she's got a good chunk of health. It's very hard to get right to her other than using a large spell, or two spells, whether it's a Fireball plus Zap, a Lightning, or a lot of times you'll see people waste their elixir sending miners to take out the Musketeer. So just kind of an annoying card to have to deal with on the defensive side.
Interesting note here, and here's the Royal Giant high. Ewiz does get taken out, but the Royal Giant with the Heal Spirit should be enough to get one shot here on tower.
Giant Skeleton!
And Giant Skeleton!
And a nice late log.
Kaboom!
Yeah.
6:05 left on the left-hand side, and Team Liquid out to a huge lead with the final 20 seconds to go.
I mean, Cream was just so busy dealing with everything on the back end. That Royal Giant trying to get a mini P.E.K.K.A right on top of it. I think they expected their Giant Skeleton, or expected their defense to deal with the Giant Skeleton much better than it did. So a great start for Team Liquid here.
Here we go, game number 1, and the thing they wanted. A guy to come in and completely take control of 2v2. And look at the smile on Razor's face. He's like, yeah, man, this is what I do. I win 2v2. Giving a little flash of the peace sign. Let me tell you something. Razor loved being with Misfits, but when Team Liquid came a knockin', this was an offer he couldn't refuse. A huge fan of Team Liquid as an organization, a big fan of them in other esports, and he'd always wanted to wear the blue. So it wasn't a thing where he didn't want to be with Misfits. It's that when the Yankees knock, you answer.
I'm so mad you just said that sentence. That was my sentence. I was waiting for you to stop talking the whole time. I know, man. I know. It's so cool to see Razor. I mean, you look at him, he's excited to be where he is. He's confident, he's comfortable, and of course, he's doing what he does best. And if you go back to 2017, this is his bread and butter. 2v2 right into the King of the Hill. Let me play at least 3 games to start our first 2 sets, and you will be in a great position moving forward. So looking at the numbers here, you see Razor, Canario just very in control of that match the entire time. Even if you look down at the bottom and you see just the damage that was actually done to their tower, or if you look at the top right and you see they were only able to drop that balloon just 1 time. So a lot of struggles here for Cream getting the offense going.
Let's take a look at some of the action from this one, and here was the big push that changed it all. The Giant Skeleton getting healed up, that Heal Spirit giving just enough, and take a look at that. The Inferno Dragon could not get on target. Dark Prince not high enough to turn it around, and that one sealed the deal here for Team Liquid in game number 1.
Yeah, and you saw the timing there from Team Liquid, just a little off to add that cherry on top. They were trying to, I believe, knock that Dark Prince back just a hair to ensure that their Giant Skeleton would not take the step away from the tower. Really, really well played by Liquid. Really great management of all the interactions. And honestly, they had a ton of responses. They had the E-Wiz for the Inferno Dragon. They had the Inferno Tower for the Lava Hound. And of course, that Heal Spirit getting off that little heal was the reason why that Giant Skeleton made it to tower.
It was huge, and I am loving seeing these two guys together. Two players who, again, like Canario, was an easy candidate for MVP in Season 1 in CRL EU. 75% win rate overall, 8-1 in 1v1 sets. The guy was absolutely nasty. One of the top 3 players in CRL EU, part of why Liquid picked him up. Razor, other side, again, with a high, almost 70% win rate as well. So two top-tier veterans coming together, two original top-tier 2v2 players coming together. This makes Liquid look, dare I say it, even more frightening than they were in 2019.
Yeah, and I'm sure that is not what any of the other teams wanted to hear out of your mouth right now because they were already so dominant. But you think about the cool that Liquid has coming into matches now. If you have Canario and Razor in your 2v2 set, you're always going to pick up a game. I'll be shocked to see them get swept at all. They might not go perfect in their sets, but the thing is, it's Canario and Razor, so even if they lose 1-2 in the 2v2, they can still go into that King of the Hill untilted in my mind and still provide a ton of utility for Eric, Surge, and of course, Igor.
I think that's the most important thing you said there was untilted. The thing about Igor, or think about this team in particular, but now especially Razor and Canario, these are two players who are mentally very strong. Canario, we talked about it a lot, how he had ice in his veins, was great at playing from behind in head-to-head play in that first season of CRL. And Razor, you see just how generally calm he is. This is such an X factor for how well these guys can perform.
And the other thing that I love here is with these player cams on, Razor does look like this is how he's played 10,000 games of Clash Royale. I mean, he looks like he is so in his element right now. I mean, and that's what I love is seeing all these guys playing in the comfort of their own home. You're expecting to get the best gameplay out of them with the least bit of nerves.
So here we go. Giant Skeletons meet at the bridge. Fisherman pulling one across, and a nice Fisherman pull there from Team Liquid. And we'll see again, and this might be a setup for the right-hand side. E-Wiz comes out on defense, but there you go. Royal Giant does come at the bridge.
And a beautiful support there with the Mega Minion plus Baby Dragon already here. Team Liquid get a nice few shots in. Great redirection there with that Giant Skeleton pull.
It's an interesting question. How do Michifu and Diego E work together? Graveyard in on the right-hand side. Not going to be Freeze because Freeze is banned. We're used to that Graveyard Freeze roll coming in. A little different look this time. Ooh. Curious to see how Michi and Diego work together and how many reps. I don't actually know how much they've played together in the offseason in 2v2 specifically.
Yeah, I mean, and we're seeing right now that their communication was pretty on point there. I like the way they dealt with everything, the way they supported their Giant Skeleton push.
15 seconds left before double elixir time, and so far in the second game, it is Cream Real Betis just slightly ahead, 1881 on the right-hand side to 2069.
So Giant Skeletons both on the right-hand side. We'll see if Team Liquid tries to change the pace and move to the left.
Inferno Tower again out of Team Liquid, so 2 games in a row with you don't see a ton of Inferno Tower. We haven't in the past seen a ton of Inferno Tower in Western 2v2 play. And now we've seen it back-to-back games from the boys in blue.
Oh, and wow, this is an incredible sequence that it took about 15 seconds for it to unfold, but that Fisherman staying alive for Team Liquid based off of a zap on their opponent's Fisherman maybe 30 seconds ago allowed it so that they were able to play that Royal Giant aggressively at the river, and their opponents would have to double down on defense.
Again, Royal Giant, Giant Skeleton high. RG might connect. No, gets slowed down just enough. But again, with the far side Fisherman out of Razor and Canario. I think that's Canario playing those Fishermen over on the left-hand lane and doing a great job of separating the defenses of Cream.
Yeah, and this is really what you need to see out of Team Liquid. You need to see them change lanes. You know when you're going up against Graveyard, a raged up RG on the tower. When you're going up against Graveyard, if you keep playing into the same lane over and over and over, you're going to have a really, really difficult time defending these counter pushes.
Zap clears off some of those skeletons, but damage is dealt. Going to be now just around 800 HP, 840 on the right-hand side. 90 seconds left. Things looking a little bit difficult here for Razor and Canario. Michi and Diego in firm control at this stage.
I mean, Michi and Diego just have such a great matchup here. Not only do they have two giant skeletons to deal with everything crossing the river, everything supporting that Royal Giant, but they've got the NATO, the log, and the bomb tower all to work together to make sure that those RG connections are very, very small, if they happen at all.
Well, the Ice Whiz has been so huge for them as well, slowing down those Royal Giants on top of it. So
yeah,
you're absolutely right there, Andrew. The difficulty to break through on top of, if you take a look at what's happening on Razor and Canario's side, really not the best collection of responses for Graveyard, just proven to be a lot of difficulty for them.
And I really like you, and look at that. They get a massive push across the river, Giant Skeleton Bomb ruins everything, and that's just the name of the game this time around. I was going to say, I love that you brought up that Ice Whiz play, because they've literally only played it in defense. There it is, once again, same spot, same thing, rinse and repeat. Every time the RG comes down, you respond with an Ice Whiz.
And then the log and NATO in tandem to get two different variations on knockback. A little bit of extra spent there, but not going to be critical because they're still way ahead on Elixir right now. Michifu and Diego E putting together a gem of a game here in number 2.
Yeah, and the Fisherman being used so very much and so effectively in this second game. So there we go. That's exactly what you need to see if you're CRB, is a big-time 2v2 win against two of maybe, if not the two best in the game.
Yeah, I mean, I do understand the idea of going back to that Royal Giant deck again in game number 2, but you have to imagine with how popular Royal Giant is overall within the game at this moment, and in particular, sort of that same idea of Royal Giant, Lumberjack, Heel Spirit, Fisherman, all that stuff together, you have to imagine that Michi and Diego had something deck-wise prepared for it. A little surprised to see Liquid go to the well again in game number 2.
Yeah, you know, it's always tough, right? If they run it back, they look like geniuses. If they win, and then obviously with what we just saw, it looks like it was a bit of a mistake. They just had a horrible matchup here. They've got no poison to deal with the Graveyard. They don't even have a lot of cheap troops that can deal with, you know, all those skeletons popping up on the board. And then obviously, as we were talking about, defensively for Cream, they had every answer that you'd need to deal with the Royal Giants. So I'd be shocked if Team Liquid went back to it once again. I mean, maybe they're trying to see who blinks first, but I honestly think now that you've seen Razor and Canario win 2 games with it, bring out something else. It's just day one. You're not going to burn a lot of information. Just get another win condition on the board.
And they also have a lot of information from CRL East. They've had the benefit of being able to watch the Eastern region. And if you keep an eye on Twitter and follow a lot of these players, they all, on Saturdays and Sundays, they've been posting early in the morning about, okay, time to go to bed. I'm done watching. I'm finished watching Fav, or finished watching Nova, finished watching TTG. I'm going to sleep now. So these guys are staying up late at night, taking notes and using what they're seeing in East to inform their season for the West. And so you can imagine that there's a lot that I think all the players have information-wise in terms of what's working and what's not working in 2v2 right now.
Yeah, you know, we were talking with marketing before the season started, and they were asking us, you know, what is it that you think is about CRL West that makes it the best in the world? And I was telling them, honestly, I think what makes CRL West the best is CRL East. It's kind of a weird answer, but again, to go back to what you're saying, iron sharpens iron. These guys, the best in the world, they only learn from the other best in the world, which are the players. Even coaches will tell you, look, they're better at the game than me. They know the game better than I do. All I can do is give my informed opinion and hope that they take my advice. Is it right 100% of the time? No. But that's the thing about CRL East and why those West players are up watching, man. There's only one way to know what the next best, newest thing is, and that's by watching the best in the world.
Well, it's also that they love the game.
Yeah,
that's one of the fun things. These guys love the game so much, and I don't know where you're watching right now. Those of you at home, if you're watching in the U.S., watching in Europe, watching in Latin America, or if you're one of the Eastern players who's up in the middle of the night and you're watching right now in South Korea, in Japan, in China, in Indonesia. I don't know where you're watching, but you're watching because you love the game, and these guys love the game the same way. So they stay up late at night to watch the best in the world play on the other half, and that's just part of the passion for Clash Royale.
Yeah, and I'm sitting here looking at the chat. One thing that people don't love is Giant Skeleton in 2v2. And you know what, chat? I couldn't agree more. It's so frustrating when you put up a beautiful defense, you've got a great counter push coming in, and your opponent stops everything right in its tracks with one Giant Skeleton bomb. So you guys on YouTube and Twitch that are complaining about it, don't worry. We know you just got to play around it. You just got to play around it.
That's why we're seeing the use of the Fisherman, right? Trying to get that Giant Skeleton, pull it out of the way. So we'll see if a team can capitalize on that. NATO, even with the combination of those, NATO and Miner as well to distract on the opposite side. So many different ways to try to deal with that Giant Skeleton. We'll see if they can figure out the math here in game number 3 and a little bit of cycle play so far from both sides.
Yeah, game number 3, and they cheapened things up. I love it, and I was wondering when we were going to hear that first Miner here in CRL West Fall 2020.
X-Bow in 2v2. Who else would do it but Michifu, one of the top Ice Bow players on the planet?
I love it. I love it. Yeah, and, you know, obviously to kind of elaborate on what I was just saying, we saw Miner earlier with Lava Miner, but, you know, Miner Chip in 2v2 was a big-time win condition, almost meta for a little while last season. So seeing maybe some of that here from the bottom of your screen, and as you said, we're going to double X-Bow here.
This is crazy. I saw the Ice Spirit, the Archers, and the Knight, and I was like,
No way.
I want to say X-Bow, but I'm not. It would be stupid for me to say X-Bow out loud about 2v2, but it's Michifu. It's Michifu. So yeah, of course we're seeing X-Bow in 2v2. Let's see what the Cream Royale Betis guys can do with it here. So far out to an unbelievably commanding lead.
I mean, I was in the same boat as you. I saw the cycle, I saw the cards come out, Skeletons, Ice Spirit, Knight, Archers, no way. No way, no how. Michifu busting out the X-Bow and gets a massive, massive connection there on the bottom left-hand side of your screen.
And you see not a lot to pick it up on the ground here. And so at this point, Liquid's going to try to go for a tower trade on the right-hand side. This is going to be rough here for Team Liquid.
Yeah, this is going to be really, really tough. I mean, you figure, yep, there it is. I was going to say, you figure there's a rocket in there, but now they need to get to that flying machine. There's the fireball. They're both in the tank. A rough start to this. Wow, game 3 in 2v2.
This is bananas. I mean, look, there's a ton on the tower right here, and not much elixir here to play defense.
Now, this is where Michifu and Diego E get in a lot of trouble. This is what was brilliant. Razor and Canaria recognize, look, we might lose this game if it's a 1-tower game. What we need to do is sacrifice our tower and make this a 2-tower game, because you know what really struggles in 2 towers? X-Bow.
This is interesting. So here we go, trying to set up. Lightning takes out the tower, and now that X-Bow just out in no man's land, not going to do much. So here's the question now. Can Michifu and Diego E essentially build a city on their side, control the heck out of all this stuff, maybe find one more X-Bow lock and win on Spell Cycle?
I mean, they've got a lot of work to do. I was going to say they've got a decent chance right now, but I just can't imagine. I cannot imagine that Razor or Canario will allow an X-Bow to connect to the 1 tower. I mean, there's only 1 tower to go for.
Cage down. And a lot of protection there. Dark Prince, though, can just go wherever it wants.
Yeah.
Lightning to clean things up. Here we go, though. Still pretty even with 1:50 left.
And if you look at the spell power on the board, Lightning, Poison, Snowball at the bottom of your screen, Rocket, Fireball, Log, top of your screen. So I'm pretty sure if you can do the math there, we know who wins that one. It's Cream if you can't do
Double
math.
X-Bow down. This is crazy. Double X-Bows down. The pressure from Cream right now is absolutely nuts, and this is the right thing to do. They're just doing whatever they can to make sure Team Liquid cannot put a Lava Hound on the board.
Yeah, and the biggest problem here for Team Liquid is they don't have anything really beefy on the ground. They've got no Mega Knight, they've got no P.E.K.K.A, they've got no Giant. They need something with a little bit of beefiness to tank for it. All they've got is the Dark Prince and the Fisherman, and then that Goblin Hut cage, excuse me.
This is bananas.
Wow.
How do you game plan for this? How do you game plan for this beautiful play with the NATO?
Beautiful NATO to move that flying machine away. X-Bow connects again. Liquid going back to the well going, we've got to get a tower trade in the books.
Can they do it? 50 seconds left. X-Bow on the cage on the right-hand side. Tesla to play some defense. trying to spread their troops out the best they can, but NATO and Spells will do a lot to defend here.
Really rough use of the flying machine there, right into the Tesla. Expo locked again. Michifu and Diego E are going to take this 2v2 set with double Expo, Rich.
This is bananas. This is absolutely bananas, and I'm so glad that we are back for this fall split. This is so fun already. Michifu, big smile on his side. He's giggling, dude. He knows he just pulled a fast one on Team Liquid.
I mean, he is laughing out loud at the fact that it worked. It actually worked. If only we could see Canario's face as well. Diego E and Michifu clearly very, very proud of themselves. Razor, you can see the frustration, even though it doesn't seem like it's changed much. He's got the phone covering his face, and I got to imagine he's very, very frustrated. What a great matchup for Diego and Michifu once they recognized what Canario and Razor had to actually play on the ground defensively.
That's just, yeah, it's just bananas. Just bananas. I mean, just the absolute, the gumption is the best word for it to bring. We've seen Expo tried out in 2v2 before, and we've seen it done by Pain Gaming, which Michifu used to be a part of. The only ones to actually do it. Michi does it here, and the pressure they put in the right-hand lane, Andrew, this was absolutely brilliant, and that was that great NATO to clear up some of that and get the Expo lock, take care of the flying machine. Just high IQ play here from Cream Royale Betis.
I mean, high IQ in every sense of the term. I mean, whether it is ice spiriting an Inferno Dragon that's about to lock, whether it is kiting a flying machine away to make sure it doesn't get to the right side of the map, whatever they needed to do, micro-wise, they did. And they did it so immaculately that there was no way for Liquid to respond. I mean, again, I'm looking at the chat, and I saw someone just go, what are they supposed to do?
Yeah.
They did what they were supposed to do. Lose. They cannot defend that. It was amazing.
Well, I mean, the play on the right-hand side, the tower trade, was the right call from Team Liquid.
Yes.
What I was impressed by was the ability to win the two-tower game, the crosswise two-tower game from Cream Royale Betis in that situation. And yeah, what do? I don't know, try to bypass the Expo and just go all out for a 3 crown and know you're gonna lose that right-hand tower as well. I'm not sure what the math is there, and I'm pretty sure that that Razor and Canario didn't have an answer either.
I mean, if they had any other beatdown deck that was on the ground, they would have been in such a better position. But the fact that their tank was in the skies and could never actually soak up that Expo shot, and we all know how hard it is to get a tower down with just the Lava Hound. It's all about what you put behind the Lava Hound. And the fact that Michifu and Diego E had the spells to manage it and also kept the pressure up, it was just a really tough position for Liquid to be in.
Well, again, you're talking about one of the top Expo players in the game. Michifu just finished #1 on ladder back in August. This is a guy who knows Expo matchups and mechanics inside and out. Very, very talented with this overall archetype. So I'm not surprised to see him with the high IQ version of that in 2v2 as well.
Yeah, so here we go. A surprising, I guess it's only day one, but I think a lot of people expected Razor and Canario to take the 2v2 set, but a surprising and just win here from Diego E and Michifu in the 2v2 set. Going to bring us to King of the Hill now, changing things up from 1v1. Guys, you know how King of the Hill works. It's 3 players from each squad. Each player gets 1 life, and the first squad to eliminate all 3 wins the set. And if it's, of course, Cream, they win the match. Will Liquid get swept 0-2 on their fall debut, Rich?
Cream has a really nasty King of the Hill lineup, especially when adding Michifu in. Because think about that. You have Michifu, who's a phenomenal player. Pedro, who's one of the top players out of all of Latin America. Yeah. And then who knows, Diego E or St. Bellican, either one. Belly is crafty. He's a veteran. He's certainly a high intelligence, top of his intelligence player. And Diego E's been very good. I'm curious to see what Liquid goes with. And the big question here is, does Surgical Goblin make it in this King of the Hill lineup?
I think so. I think you got to bring out the guy. You got to bring out the big guns. I mean, you saw what he did in World Finals, maybe struggled a little bit in the offseason, but he still surged. So there we go. The big man himself, the most celebrated player in Clash Royale, Surgical Goblin, going to kick things off. Igor following that, and then Razor going to come back out to pull double duty here in 2v2 and King of the Hill. Bellican kicking things off, as you just said, Rich. Pedro, their #1 star in head-to-head play in the middle there, and Michifu looking to close things out.
I like both of these lineups a lot. I like getting Surge in the mix. I like getting him in the mix early, so he's playing just a low-pressure game. Igor, obviously, there's no way you sit him. And Razor is so stone cold. Yeah, put him as the anchor. I'm a little surprised that Belly's leading off, as opposed to I maybe would have switched Belly and Michifu and let the hot hand go right out the gate here with Michi, but let's go ahead and see this. This is kind of a classic matchup. Surgical Goblin, the GOAT, up against one of the most popular veterans in the game, Saint Belican.
Yeah, Surge cycling that Fisherman to the left-hand side, not going to be able to activate King, but he does get that fireball down, and in case you're confused at home, no, you're not watching one of Surge's videos based off the background, you're actually watching CRL right now.
Yeah, there we go, and it's going to be the 6-man split, 3-3, the Royal Recruits with Royal Hogs, so lots of dual lane pressure here for Belican, and looking like it's going to be RG for Surgical Goblin.
Yeah, Hunter going to be placed right there, offset to the left, help clean up everything, should get 0 damage in here from Belican's 6-man, and going to kind of recoup here with 1 elixir in the tank.
So Heal Spirit, Skeleton Dragons, Fisherman, I think we'll be seeing a lot of that at least through the end of September, and we'll see if October balance changes disrupt this meta at all.
So now with the 6-man out of cycle, Surge decides to go Royal Giant in the back, knowing that those 6-men really do a ton of DPS. We'll see what he drops in conjunction with it. It's going to be a Musketeer with the Goblin Cage.
RG in the back is typically kind of dangerous during single elixir, the ability to punish opposite lane, but having seen 4 elixir spent on the cage, maybe feeling a bit more confident to go with it in the back, but that allows Belican to create this huge counter push.
Yeah, it's a big push, and that Barb Barrel not going to go down, so he's going to need to get something on top of that Musketeer, but save enough elixir for the Fireball left-hand lane. Really, really well played by Belican here, keeping up the pressure, and that Heal Spirit connects for some massive, massive damage from the Musketeer.
And now the dual lane pressure mounts. 1587 left-hand lane, 1515 right-hand lane. Right now, Belican way out ahead over Surgical Goblin.
Yeah, Surge here having issues with really only having a little bit of splash damage and obviously having to use that Barb Barrel to try to get to the Musketeer, but Musketeer was protected by the 6-man.
RG trying to break on through, but between the cage, the Musketeer, and the Royal Recruits, so much DPS on the board. And again, going huge on the left-hand side. Is Belly going to pressure with the pigs on the right? He only has 5 elixir.
I think he holds it maybe because he's going to get great damage on both sides of this regardless. And there you go. Hogs come in after you see the Fisherman come out from Surgical Goblin. Surge is just playing catch-up this entire game.
And both towers continue to just go down almost with precision, side by side in tandem, 750 to 763. Surgical Goblin with really no way to break through. So much DPS and the cage to control that Royal Giant. Very rough matchup for Team Liquid Star.
And you talk about how much there is in front of this Musketeer and the ability to actually get through to those Royal Hogs, to get through the Musketeer. It's basically impossible for Surge.
Here we go, 514 on the left-hand side, and that Musketeer trying to find a way through. Not going to happen at this stage, but the damage done already, 445, and now it's Surgical's time to go the opposite direction. We have not seen a spell or a big spell, and there you go, Fireball cleans up a lot of that on the right.
And beautiful timing on that Fireball. He takes a couple shots there from the RG because he waits for the Fisherman to get on top of the cage, then drops the Fireball for the most efficient cleanup.
And a nice 3-1 split there, forcing a little bit extra out of Surgical on the left-hand side. And good control here from Belly at this stage. 1:15 left. Game 1 of King of the Hill looking like it's going to go to Cream Royale Betis.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of a last-ditch effort there from Surge trying to get that RG up at the river. You see how much of an elixir advantage St. Belican had to start this push. Now comes another 3-1 with the Hogs, and that's going to be GG most likely.
Fireball to the left-hand side, holding on best it can, but now doubling down on the right is Belican. Musketeer down again. Everything here at the bridge, a great cleanup Fireball. Surgical Goblin just trying to hold on.
Yeah, doing anything and everything he can now to avoid losing the tower. He does get a bit of damage in there, and it's not quite within Fireball range, but it feels like he's barely hanging on.
And Belly doing the right thing. That's veteran play, not trying to go for any spell cycle. Knows he's way in control. No reason to spend 4 elixir on a tower. Play defense, preserve your lead, and make the move at the right time. Here we go.
Yep, and then you saw that great second Goblin Cage coming down, pushing the RG off the tower once again. Surgical Goblin still making St. Bella can earn his pay, but it's not going to be enough. Fireball comes in on both sides. RG going to get one shot, but it's not going to be enough. Oh, second shot in, and
Barbarian! Wow.
438.
That's about as close as that game could have got there, Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely tip my hat to Surgical Goblin. He never gave up. He fought as hard as he possibly could against a pretty rough matchup there. He just didn't have great responses to both sides of the board, and there was just so much there for Belican. There was so much DPS to come in. There was the ability to cycle back around to the Goblin Cage if he cycled it early. Just really tough there for Surge.
And you see Belly certainly happy to come out and get that opening win here in this season. And a big one for Belican. Overall career in King of the Hill moves now to 6-5. Does have one sweep in his overall King of the Hill campaign in CRL.
Yeah, it just, I really feel like that was about as good as Surge could have played it after the first maybe 30 seconds. He had a really rough start there, but a part of it was just his opponent recognizing what was in and out of cycle, and he saw that Fisherman cycle to the left, and he goes, all right, well, I can at least prod and poke and see how he wants to defend these Royal Hogs on the right. So right there, if you look at the replay, that was the final moments. Surgical Goblin making that game look much closer than it actually felt for that entire 5 minutes, but honestly, 438, another Barb hit, another Royal Giant shot. We're talking about something else right now.
Yeah, and I gotta wonder about that Royal Giant in single elixir, the one that he played behind King Tower in response to the Goblin Cage. That 6 elixir that essentially fed the recruits on the opposite side and didn't accomplish a whole lot. And you gotta wonder, look, you understand the reason why he did it, but you gotta wonder if sitting back and saving that 6 elixir for defense keeps that game closer. This ended at not a big difference in HP at that final moment. Could that 6 elixir have been the difference to play enough defense to allow him to make those big pushes in triple and get the win?
Yeah, it's really tough, right? Because, you know, Surge felt he was an elixir advantage. He also felt that the Royal recruits were so far out of cycle that he'd be able to create somewhat of a presence and maybe not have to be as worried about Royal recruits plus Hogs plus whatever may be. But the thing is maybe he did a little counting wrong. Elixir-wise, Belican was able to get enough elixir on the board, support elixir, not just cycle elixir, but support. He got the Musketeer down in the back. He got the 6-man back down on the board. He got the cage up high so that by the time that Royal Giant finally crossed the river, Belican had massive pushes on both sides of the board.
Here we go, Belican with one win so far. Can he do it again in game number 2? One of the best in the game, Igor, coming out here in game number 2 for Team Liquid.
Excited to see Igor out here. We get Skeleton cycled in the back from both.
Igor's had an interesting off-season, made it to the second stage of the No Tilt World Championship twice, but was not able to break through into Stage 3. And in one of those games, Andrew, he played the exact same Mortar Hog deck against Jupiter King 4 games in a row in a best-of-5 set.
Yeah, even for the Mortar God himself, it does feel a little like an odd decision.
So pretty slow start here thus far. First minute away, no significant damage either direction. Igor looking like Graveyard, splitting the archers in opposite directions.
Yeah, and this is pretty classic for Igor, right? You look at how cheap this deck is already. He loves those quick cycle, high response decks.
This is the second most popular of the Royal Giant archetypes right now. Of course, the big one is the Royal Giant Fisherman, sometimes Hunter, Ewiz sort of mix. But this other version here that's more based on sort of like a more traditional look at Royal Giant, trying to win bridge battles in a more direct way. Another popular variation, and does get some connection here for Belican as we approach the midway point of regulation.
This is going to be a really fascinating game to watch once we get into double elixir time. If you look at how quickly both these decks cycle, that's one of the best advantages about the Royal Giant deck, is even if your opponent is able to get a building down or maybe their best defense down, you're able to cycle back around so quickly that by the time your first Royal Giant push is done, you can get a second one on the board. But to look at it on the other side, look at how quick Igor's cycle is, and he keeps playing the bomb tower first so he can get back around to it if he needs to.
I'm very curious about how Belican plans to defend graveyards once we get there, right? He has one big plan, and that's the Skeleton Dragons with the Heal Spirit. So, you know, you try to poison off Skeleton Dragons, Heal Spirit goes back and basically undoes the work of the poison. I'm wondering if in response, Igor uses the poison more to win bridge battles and uses Snowball for a cheaper way to get a little extra damage from graveyards rather than put that poison to waste, essentially, on the Skeleton Dragons.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing here is, and this is kind of answering your question, is that he's going to get the poison down where he can get the most value. It doesn't mean he's going to always go for tower damage. It's just going to be where he finds the biggest threat. And this is exactly what I was talking about a moment ago, the double RG to meet that double bomb tower.
Skeleton Dragon staying alive. Igor controlling for the moment, but loses control here. Musketeer all over tower. Belican running roughshot on the left-hand side. That's going to be down to 831. Igor in a world of hurt.
Man, and just a little bit different interaction there, and Belican wins the game if those skeletons get in front of the Musketeer. Not the case. RG back down. Igor decides to call good game. Very, very frustrated there, and that's exactly what I was looking for when we talked about getting into double elixir. Who was going to be able to keep up with the faster cycle? Would it be the double bomb tower or would it be the double royal giant? And I think the answer, and obviously based off of who we saw win there, was the fact that Igor's deck was not able to get enough single target damage down on that first royal giant.
That was absolutely wild. Yeah, not able to do enough single target damage, and I don't know, man. Now Belican looking real nasty, and Team Liquid facing elimination in 6 games potentially in their opening match.
Yeah, really surprising here, especially with the addition of Razor, and you assume that their 2v2 duo is going to get only stronger. I mean, yes, it was already so good before with Team Liquid. Maybe you don't have to fix it if it's not broken, but Igor not even able to get his graveyard out on the board. I mean, that was something that you and I picked out in the very beginning of the match, most likely running graveyard, but it was the fact that he was never able to actually get it down. And again, that is a testament to how quick Belican's deck cycles.
Well, you know, you look at also Belican's deck in terms of the Musketeer and the Skeleton Dragons, and it's really hard for Igor to get to that Musketeer, right? And so the ability to abuse the Musketeer over and over again, and this is a rare difference where you saw a lot of the time he was forcing Igor to make choices between the Musketeer and the Skeleton Dragons. Here just didn't have the elixir for it, but the same tool for both. The poison is how you handle both of those, and unable to do it unable to capitalize on that. And so it's a huge advantage for Belly one more time.
Yeah, and the other thing is you look at the single target DPS coming from Igor. The best units are, of course, the archers, but it's going to be that Inferno Dragon. And I think also once Belican recognized who his biggest foe was going to be in that Inferno, he just controlled it, whether it was to just fireball it naked so his RG would stay alive. It was making that one card ineffective that gave him the match. The moment that you can't burn down a Royal Giant and your biggest DPS is going to come from either skeletons, archers, or a knight right on top, you're not going to win those bridge battles maybe after it comes to the second or third Royal Giant that's come in the match.
Well, Belly's a really smart player. One thing, we talk about micro players a lot. Belly does the math on the macro, on the overall vision of the game very early. He has an encyclopedia level knowledge of decks. As soon as he puts you on whatever deck you're playing, he's thinking about the entire way the game should be played, what card plays how, what card plays where, how do I manage the game overall. It's been one of his strengths for a long time, and you saw it there perfectly put into high resolution in that game against Igor.
I mean, one thing that you could really watch with St. Belican over those last 2 matches, you could turn off everything on the screen other than the 2 elixir bars. That's it. And you'd be able to see how, and based off of what he is doing, his control, his management, as he said, of the game. He was up 6 elixir at one point against Surgical Goblin. 6 elixir. That is impossible to deal with if you're playing against the 6-man Royal Recruits plus Royal Hogs and you've only got 1 big spell. So his management of Elixir, his counting of Elixir, and knowing when to go all in has been incredibly impressive today.
So Razor, the King Killer, up in the anchor spot for Team Liquid, has 4 King of the Hill sweeps in his career, tied for 3rd on that stat, needs to get number 5 right here to keep Team Liquid in the running on our match week 1.
So here we go, Razor back in his fighter stance. I believe it's mostly his back on the bottom of the chair. So Ice Wiz coming out early from Raz, usually only coupled with a couple decks out there.
So looking like it's going to be Graveyard most likely from Razor. He could be throwing us for a bit of a loop here. Kind of a throwback version of Graveyard, Giant Skeleton and Ice Wiz, if that is in fact the direction he's going.
Belican gonna defend this. Giant Skeleton Bomb's gonna end up taking both those units out.
And note Razor's holding back here for a second, right? Note that he leaked a little bit of elixir there, and that was just to make sure that the Goblin Cage came down at late enough spot to not take one shot from the Musketeer, right? He didn't know about the exact timing, wanted to set it up exactly also for the cage on the opposite side.
Yeah, and that's something that you and I have talked about a lot in our career as casters, is knowing when to leak that elixir to make the stronger play. Sometimes 2 elixir not played is just better than playing it instantly and just being out of cycle.
So slow play here again from both sides. Minute 30 left in regulation time, and Razor up by just a hair.
Yeah, I'll be very curious to see how Belican's going to divert the attention away from the lane that Razor wants to focus on once we get into double elixir time, and he's going to do it by going on offense. Okay.
And a Bomber, recently buffed the Bomber, making an appearance in day 1 of CRL.
Yeah, I mean, the Bomber is one of the most frustrating cards in the game. If you get a lot of value out of a Bomber, you can destroy your opponent's elixir advantage on you.
This will be interesting. Bar Barrel comes out to deal with the tiny bomb-carrying skeleton, and now we have a nicely placed graveyard push, not quite tanked for by the Baby Dragon. 208 remaining on the left-hand side for Belly.
Yeah, a bit unfortunate there for Razor. It would have been a massive hit had that happened. But what you see here is this change with the Bomber. It frees up the poison. Now with that poison free on defense, you can focus on the Dragons, the Musketeer, things like that. And it really, really helps these pushes.
Oh, and a nice nado to pull that Musketeer into Giant Skeleton range.
Yeah.
That bomb should explode early enough. The Baby Dragon keeps tanking, but not doing enough to break through. The damage lead still slightly for Cream Rail Betis' player, but if you look at Belly's face, a moment ago he kind of scratched his head. And Razor doing the same thing now. Both guys trying to figure out what the actual strategy should be in this moment.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you did see Belican's face there, he almost grimaced, because I think he's having a tough time figuring out how he's going to actually win this if he continues to go in the same lane. So what does he do? He decides to go opposite lane and play his poison defensively. The problem is will he have enough DPS on the board to deal with all of this?
Icewiz will do a little bit more on the left-hand side, and that not going to be enough to get the lead here for Razor, or it will for a moment. But a nice push the opposite side, and Heal Spirit keeps that Knight distracting the Giant Skeleton just a little bit longer.
So there we go. Poison defensively comes out. Baby Dragon, Giant Skeleton going right lane. I don't think he graveyards here. It doesn't feel like the correct decision.
And you see he does hold off. A little bit more on the board. That Giant Skeleton bomb not going to get much value. We'll stop the Brawler from crossing over.
Now what needs to happen here is that Razor needs to play an immaculate defense, and it's just not going to happen. St. Belican sweeps! He is going to sweep Liquid! Wow!
Absolute wow. And you see the let's go from St. Belican. Razor can't believe it, and that's what we talked about. You saw that moment where Belly was sitting there thinking, what do I do here? Let me weigh the options. And he did. He made the adjustment, got a huge King of the Hill sweep to open up his fall season.
What a day for St. Belican. I love the kid. I was so bummed when he took a season off. I'm glad to see him back. Definitely not playing up to his potential for a lot of his career, it felt like. Up until recently, he has really been shocking people. And this moment right here, the way to start off fall 2020 is with a Liquid sweep in King of the Hill. Man, that is just massive.
That is absolutely huge. Absolutely huge. And you saw, and again, I want to talk about that intelligence. You saw him trying to figure out, what do I do where the Bomber's defending, and then it's kind of like messing around with how I defend on my side. But he was able to hold things down, and he had two different pieces that really helped defend against the Graveyards on the opposite side. The Poison and the Skeleton Dragon Heal Spirit combination. And once he figured that out, easy win here for Belican in double elixir time.
Yeah, and it was also the moment when he decided to switch to the other lane, right? Because in the beginning, he was going to the left side. You and I both saw kind of that reaction on his face of just like, this isn't working, and I need to change it right now. And it was when he had just enough elixir to change the tide, he was able to push to that left-hand side and really make him play his game instead of, the other way around.
So a great play there by Belly, the British Bomber, Not afraid of a bomber on the opposite side, taking care of business with a clean 3-0 sweep in King of the Hill. Andrew, this is not the start of the season that Team Liquid was expecting.
I mean, they looked great in game one, but then it was 0-5 for the rest of the day for Liquid. And a lot of it was, honestly, there was some pretty phenomenal matchups in Cream's favor for a lot of those games, 2v2 and 1v1, whether it was cycle, whether it was just straight matchup and win condition. There was just a lot of really good work done, maybe by the analysts, maybe it was luck, but I'm sure if you ask Cream, it was probably done on purpose.
Yeah, I mean, two specific things to look at. One was the 2v2 Expo play. Just the first, going to the double Expo and 2v2 in the first place, getting a perfect matchup there against a Lava Hound and playing it pristinely. So you see really high IQ work out of Michi and Diego in the 2v2. And then Belly, mid-game adjustments multiple times throughout just to make sure he understood what was going on in the game, manage it correctly, leading to a very hot start here for Cream Real Betis, who a lot of people are picking as a potential top 4 here to go to those World Finals.
I mean, we didn't even see their best player today, right? Like, Pedro 15 is supposed to be the guy that you always go to win head-to-head plays. We didn't even have to see him. He didn't even have to come out, and that's what you want. If you are a squad that has a guy that's supposed to be the #1 stunner in head-to-head play, the longer you can keep him off the battlefield, the better.
Yeah, that's absolutely huge. And, you know, it's one of those things where if you wish you'd done that in a doubleheader weekend, right? The weekend where you have to play twice.
Yeah.
Because then you're really saving some decks, but you're not angry here. St. Bellican with a huge lift, protecting Michifu's decks, protecting Pedro's decks, and most importantly, clutching out a huge win against Team Liquid.
All right, Twitter, we got the first match wrong. Are we going to do better on the second one? You guys technically have SSG winning, but you did me wrong in the first match. So let's see. Make sure you get those votes in, all right?
Match 1 of the day in the books. Cream Real Betis with the win. We have 2 more matches. We'll be back in 5 minutes with the rookies of Pain Gaming against the defending Western champions, Spacestation Gaming. 2 of our opening day here at CRL West. We had quite a big one here for the opening, a 5-1 win overall for Cream Royale Betis over Team Liquid, a big King of the Hill sweep for St. Bellican.
Yeah.
And now we move into our second match of the day, and this is a very interesting one, Andrew. We have the defending Western champions, Spacestation Gaming, up against a team entirely made of rookies, top-tier players, but all brand new to CRL.
Yeah, and you really do wonder how their offseason play is going to translate here to the big time, to the big stage. But that being said, we are going to see something a little bit different out of Spacestation Gaming today, something that may either handicap them or maybe show them a new light at the end of the tunnel. We will not be having Aw Crap in competitive play today. So I'm imagining if I'm Pain Gaming and I don't know what SSG's been up to, I think that's probably a good thing for me, but I don't really know. I don't know who's going to come in and fill that spot, and I don't know how that 2v2 duo has been playing.
Well, that's the big thing for me with Pain Gaming. I think that Pain, with the roster they have, we'll get into it in a minute, the talent they have on this Pain Gaming squad, I think they will win more King of the Hills than they lose. The big question for them is 2v2. That's a brand new squad. How do they come out in 2v2 at this level, having never played 2v2 competitively against this caliber of player? So that's going to be the big question for Pain. Other side, you say, Aw Crap is out. So not going to be the 2v2 pair for this match today. Maybe that creates an opening, though I have heard some inklings that the backup pair for Space Station Gaming is pretty nasty as well.
Yeah, and that becomes an interesting conversation for Aw Crap. If they get a better 2v2 duo, then what happens to his role on the squad? So I guess we'll find out in match 3 when he should be back. But we're not on match 3. We're on match 1 today. And a big part of what you're talking about today are those rookies. And how do rookies get to play 2v2 at the top level for 3 years? Like Immortals and SSG have. How do they get that much experience and pack it into one preseason?
A lot of these players do have experience with 2v2 competitively. A lot of them participate. I think all of them were, except for maybe one, were in the No Tilt Worlds. So there you had 2v2. Of course, a lot of them playing in No Tilt League. These are 4 players who are all in No Tilt League in the spring season. So there is 2v2 experience. But on the other side, you have, like you said before, multiple seasons of 2v2 at the highest level, and today up against the top guy. And taking a look at Pain Gaming, one of the best 2.6 players on the planet, and Lucas, sweep the Canadian, Vitor, the pride of Portugal, and Wallace, also a Brazilian on this Pain Gaming squad, a nasty team of brand new players.
And honestly, phenomenal hair. Just incredible hair. From left to right. I love it. I'm excited to see all these guys. There's names I've heard in the community for a very long time. Let's see how they play today against this stacked Western Champions squad in Space Station Gaming. Lapacati, Samuel Basoto, and the God RF coming out for you today. AC or Aw Crap will not be fielded for the first 2 matches at least. That being said, who will Space Station bring out today in that 2v2? Rich, it feels like it's got to be Lapacati because of what Samuel Basoto has done as a head-to-head player.
Yeah, I think so. I've heard rumors that it has been Lapo and RF practicing together to get ready for this, knowing in the last moment that AC was going to be out. And I did hear a little inkling that in a scrim with another team that shall not be named, Lapo and RF went 12-0 in that scrim. So they might have some nice 2v2 skills together. We'll see them up against a pair of rookies in Sweep and Wallace.
Yeah, Sweep and Wallace with a ban on that giant skeleton, which we just saw dominate the 2v2, so you guys in the chat will be very happy about that. Lapacati and the God RF taking out Tornado, and this will be very interesting to see. You know, I talked to you about this a little bit yesterday when we were talking about Sam and Morton, how crazy it is when they play 2v2 that they don't really communicate. I'm wondering, because of RF and Lapacati, the language barrier, how that's going to be, because Sam and Morton, they don't talk. They just do and play the best card at the best moment. And Lapo is a guy that is phenomenal when it comes to micro.
Yeah, skill level-wise, it's hard to get better than Lapo and RF, but as you said, between the language barrier and distance, my guess is there's a lot of dragging, a lot of signaling, and a lot of just trusting the other guy can do his absolute best.
And RF has been playing 2v2 with one person for his entire career, so even though he is one of the best in the game, he's been doing it with AC.
So here we go, first 30 seconds away, and already really aggressive play from both directions. Fire up a log to get that Musketeer off, so it's going to be a variation of Miner Skeleton Barrel out of Space Station Gaming. Pigs at the bridge for Pain with the Earthquake behind. Early aggression from the rookies.
Yeah, and you see Lapacati do one of his iconic signature moves there, a little bit of a frustrated head tilt. Not happy to see that Earthquake in the deck of his opponent.
So no King Tower activation there with the Fisherman to pull the Miner 1983 to 2138. And a P.E.K.K.A high in a recruits meta. Space Station going with P.E.K.K.A.
Wow, and Space Station Gaming have a lot of difficulty getting to that Magic Archer. Magic Archer locked on the Musketeer, took it out of play, and then got damage on the tower. So a really, really nice sequence there for Sweep and Wallace.
And EQ to get the Spear Goblins off. Sweep and Wallace crushing. You see Sweep, let's go on the left-hand side of your screen. So pumped for that moment. 698, early lead here for Pain Gaming.
And he should be excited because they had so much elixir in the tank they could completely sell out, and that is why they have a massive, massive lead over Lapo and RF right now.
I am still just a little bit surprised. I mean, unless Lapo also has a Mega Knight, which I don't believe he does because he would have seen it, I'm a bit surprised by the P.E.K.K.A here in such a recruits and multi-troop unit heavy meta.
Yeah, I'm definitely a little surprised as well because you think if you were going to play that P.E.K.K.A against a win condition, you might see it running into something like a Royal Giant. But again, with the 6-man, with the Royal Recruits available, it doesn't really matter.
My guess is that maybe they underestimated Sweep and Wallace a bit and thought they might go for Golem, as that is the easiest version to run for an inexperienced 2v2 duo.
Yeah, and right now it's just kind of insult to injury. Sweep and Wallace maybe going to lose that left-hand tower, so they got to go back on offense. Doesn't really feel like it, though.
Poison in. Can more spells come in from Lapo and RF? Snowball trying to make room. Miner trying to get on the tower
on the front
in time.
and back.
Ooh, 53 HP remains. And welcome to CRL Sweep, and Wallace, congrats on your first game win.
And you see a little bit of a smile there coming out from RF and Lapacati, and I'm wondering if what they're recognizing or maybe what they're smiling about is, wow, we just kind of got handed by a couple of rookies, but also it did feel like Wallace and Sweep kind of took their foot off the gas a little bit too much towards the end of that game.
Yeah, you might be right. That got very close. I mean, what was it, 53 HP remaining on the tower there at the end? Very, very close moment, and it becomes an interesting question of what happens if that becomes a 2-tower game. We could have seen a complete reversal of fortunes.
Yeah, agreed. So here we go. You can see that rocket from RF just not really being able to get a ton of value, and then the P.E.K.K.A from Lapacati, as you mentioned, in this Royal Recruits meta, what is the P.E.K.K.A doing in the hands of Lapo or RF? Should it be a Mega Knight? And obviously cannot be a Giant Skeleton because of the ban. On the other side of it, just great play with the Piggies.
Here we go, taking a look at some of the action. This will be the tower falling on the right-hand side. And the Pigs Miner together doing some work, giving 2 different options. So now you're dealing with 6 troops, or 5 troops overall on that right-hand tower, plus the poison. Good control here, and it did not look like the bright lights of the CRL stage bothered the new players at all.
No, not at all. And the other thing that you saw at the very beginning of that replay was, again, the care that was placed into defending the Magic Archers over and over. Sweep and Wallace made sure they protected their Magic Archer, and he got a lot of value almost every single time he was on the board. And even if it's just taking out one additional unit like the Musketeer and getting a few shots on the tower, that's still a huge elixir swing in their favor, Sweeps and Wallace's.
Yeah, it's a big one, and I know you got to feel pretty good for both of these young guys. Sweep has been grinding to get his way, to get his shot here at CRL, and Payne, with the full roster retool, made a big opportunity, deciding to kind of wipe the slate clean and start over. Wallace was rumored to be a part of Payne Gaming coming into 2020 in the spring split, didn't make their final roster, but now with a second shot here and proving his worth in his first ever game in CRL.
Hey man, you don't always make it the first time around. That's what makes you better. And Wallace now clearly coming out and having a dominant showing. It's against Space Station Gaming. No, it's not RF and crap, but it's still RF and Lapicati. And it's got to feel really good for someone like Wallace, who's still trying to prove himself and will try and continue to prove himself for the entirety of the season. One match day isn't going to do it. This is a great way for him to start his career.
Yeah, and this is an important 2v2 set for them. Of course, I think that Pain, like I said earlier, wins more King of the Hills than they lose over this season. But the King of the Hill they have today is RF, Lapo, and Samuel. Yeah. You can't bet on winning that. You really can't.
It's a really, really tough threesome to go up against. So here we go. 2v2, game 2 coming at you right now. Space Station Gaming down 1.
What kind of adjustments do Lapo and RF make here in game number 2? And again, you can see, look at the look on Sweep's face here. He's focused, he's pumped up. What I'm wondering here is how well he's managing the adrenaline, the excitement of being in this situation.
I mean, you know, we mentioned it at the top of the show for a reason. It's the same in every single sport. The youngest, hungriest people are the most dangerous. They're focused, they've locked in, they've got nothing to lose and everything to prove.
Night Witch here for Lapicati and RF. Very, very interesting. And a high Royal Giant in response to protect that Musketeer.
I like that play a lot. However, that Heal Spirit coming in from Lapo and RF was perfect.
First minute away and a slight advantage in game number 2 for Pain, but nothing significant. We'll see if they choose to support this Musketeer or let her die on the vine. So Lava Night Witch for Space Station. And Fireball to clean up those skeleton dragons.
Here trying to watch the communication between Lapicati and RF. I don't know if Lapo's camera is frozen, but RF with his head down. It's very hard to see how much actual communication is going on between one another.
Well, again, I mean, you mentioned it earlier. We were in Xi'an, China for the World Cyber Games when, at the time, Immortals, now Space Station, were all there, and we spent a lot of time with the team, and I don't know how much Lapicati's English has improved in the year since, but it was certainly early in his education in English back then. So even if he has gotten to a stage where he has pretty good English for communication, you got to wonder how quick it can function when you talk about performing at this level in Clash Royale.
Yeah, and those like on-the-fly decisions that must be made.
And you know the AC and RF are used to talking a lot, so that is a bit of a shift in play style. And here we go, Lavaloon push to that right-hand side. Balloon's going to connect.
Yeah, they do not get a pull on anything there with the cage, and that is a big misplay by Sweep and Wallace.
And you see a big sigh of relief out of Lapicati. Huge connection on the right-hand side, and this should be pretty easy defense here for the final 20 seconds.
And you know what? That sigh speaks volumes, right? That sigh shows you how invested he is right now in wanting to show everyone that he's not only a great head-to-head player, but he deserves to be in this 2v2. If you get Lapicati locking down 2v2 and dominating King of the Hill, you are in a great spot as Space Station Gaming.
Wow, and a bit of spell BM out of Lapo there at the end. If you saw in the bottom left corner, so far ahead, throwing the Rage and the Zap. I believe that was Lapo who did it. I could be wrong, but the Rage and the Zap there just to be like, hey, boys, welcome. You got game number 1. We dominated you in game number 2.
And this is something that Space Station Gaming has done a lot in their careers, dropping one game and then bouncing back and taking the sweep in 2v2. Lapicati there, just to kind of continue on my thought, it was really nice to see him get emotional. And the BM I like because it's trademark Lapicati. If you've watched him live, he loves to dance around on the towers, he loves to look at his opponent, he loves to smile, loves to laugh, loves to look at the camera. This is when he's in his element. We even talked to his coach before. He's a young kid. When he was on the road for a long time, struggling with English, his gameplay went down because he was homesick. He's at home, he's in a new spot, and he's ready to go. I'm excited to see what Lapo has to bring here in the fall.
Yeah, and excited to see he and RF coordinate well together, and I'm really curious about how Sleep and Wallace bounce back. That was a pretty big error on the defense, letting that entire push just slide right on through and decimate their tower. And you got to wonder how they can regroup and refocus here for game number 3.
Yeah, that's a really good point you make. It is really surprising that this, and I believe this is going to be it. Yeah, Balloon comes down, and if you look at where this Goblin Cage is placed, it's out in no man's land. No one's going there. Not even the dragons are going to go. Okay, maybe the Self Dragons will go there. But still, the point is that the Balloon is going straight on through to the tower. There's nothing there. There's no response. That is a huge, huge mental misstep. You get that cage one tile to the right. You can play an Ewiz offset to the left. You can still support your push to the left and defend the right. It's a problem that needs to be fixed, but it happens.
Yeah, just maybe we talked about that adrenaline, talked about those nerves. It looked like maybe game 1 had it, but you saw how fired up. We can't see Wallace obviously. You saw how fired up Sweep was. I mentioned the adrenaline. That seems like it was a misclick. It might have just been fat-fingered, put it one tile off where they intended in that moment, and there you go. You have tower down, and now you're facing a game 3 deciding game against one of the best, the tied for, although now has moved beyond his partner since AC is not here today, the winningest player actively in 2v2 in the God RF.
I mean, you and I and everyone out there has all misplayed a card, and you see how quickly a game can change and swing momentum in that moment. Now do it in 2v2 when you've got someone else relying on you and the elixir's flowing a little bit more slowly. How many times have we seen the side of someone's hand drop a spell in the bottom right or left side of the map, and all of a sudden that 2v2 is just donezo? This wasn't quite as egregious. This was a one-tile misplacement, but that's the whole game, and you saw it right there.
Well, you think about a misplay, right? And let's go ahead and jump into game number 3. Think about a misplay. What it either means is A, a ton of damage on your tower, or you have to overspend and start playing cards you didn't intend to go ahead and make up that defensive error. So either way, a misplay like that puts you in a pretty nasty hole.
So here we go. Lapo and RF going quick and aggressive with what looks like some sort of spell bait as you see both the barrels coming out.
Should be quad bait. We saw a ton of this last season in the spring split. An immediate aggressive graveyard push in the opposite lane.
Ooh, right into a Mega Knight. I don't know about this aggressive graveyard. Yes, they're going to get some good damage in, but look at the push coming down that left-hand lane.
Yeah, that's going to be nasty. Musketeer completely healthy. Skeleton Barrel up front. Log not in cycle. So that's going to be Snowball has to come out, but still so much. And they're pretty even on Elixir except for this healthy Musketeer. Yeah,
that was actually really, really well managed by Sweep and Wallace. You see now the barrel going right, Muskie left. Great dual lane pressure, excuse me, from Spacestation Gaming.
They knew they were up 4. That's basically it. They knew they were up 4 because of that Musketeer being on the board, and they knew that their opponents were going to try to spend as little as possible on the Musketeer. Throw 3 the opposite side. Keep them on their back foot.
Exactly. That's exactly correct, because when you're playing bait, whether it's in 2v2 or 1v1 and you have an Elixir advantage, the worst thing you can do is double down on one lane and your opponent gets that advantage right back with one spell.
And here we go again, just switching lanes. And you know, again, the hard part about this double bait is you can stop one Goblin Barrel, maybe a Skeleton Barrel on top, but you only have 2 small spells here and an Ewiz, essentially. The Heal Spirit, you have to now, you can't use it for bridge battles, you have to save it for the other Skeleton Barrel. It just stretches you so tremendously thin.
Yeah, and as we start to get into double and triple Elixir, you're going to have to vary up where and how you play those defenses, because one side is going to be a spell, the other side you're probably going to have to double drop units. As you get deeper into double and triple Elixir, they're going to look for spell value on those double drops.
So here we go, Heal Spirit trying to give that Battle Healer Mega Knight a little bit more. Graveyard in, Dart Goblin high, trying to help set the line, and the Mega Knight does come in at the last second.
Dart Goblin doing work. Offense, defense, bridge battle, Skellies. I love that card so much, and they are using him so well.
That bridge battle was perfectly fought by Space Station, and now insane pressure. Skeleton Barrel in, Snowball early, Ewiz has to come behind. And yeah, you see Space Station calling good game here, knowing that they completely have Pain Gaming over the edge.
And you know why? It's that Dart Goblin, Rich. Anytime you allow a card like that does so much damage, that is so weak to stay on the board for 30 seconds, it's a huge, huge Elixir suck. A vortex, a black hole, if you will.
And look at that, Bomb Tower and Dark Goblin working together to shut down that graveyard push. Mini P.E.K.K.A going for free pancakes.
Hey!
Gets it! Huge! Everybody pour some syrup on it. Space Station Gaming takes the first set, 2v2, Lopacati and RF going out in style.
And Space Station Gaming going right back to the well in the sense of, look, you can take a game off of us. We're gonna feel you out, figure you out, and then put you to work. There he is, there's AC, hanging out in the background. You love to see it there, supporting his buddy. Definitely, probably experiencing a little bit of FOMO, but I'm sure he's so proud of what AC and Lapo just did.
Yeah, that was absolutely huge, especially with that first game just really felt like they weren't in sync. They weren't in rhythm, right? And then to come back out, get that game number 2, and then game number 3. What you saw there was just a difference in experience, really is what it came down to. Sweep and Wallace are both very, very talented players, both very talented head-to-head players, and this King of the Hill really could go either way. But in 2v2, RF has been around for such a long time. Lapo, of course, has been one of their practice partners. This is a difference in experience, and you can see it right here.
Yeah, and I think that the difference in experience is something to really, really highlight, because what does a bait deck do when you play against it? Well, I know personally when I lose against Logbait, I'm always so frustrated because I felt like I lost the game myself. I made the mistakes that cost me the win. It wasn't them outplaying me. So what does that mean at CRL? Well, basically what it means is you have 2 guys that are better at the game, letting 2 guys that are less experienced at the game make their own mistakes, dig their own grave. And they did it over and over by what you specifically pointed out in that dual lane pressure and making them make mistakes, making them spend elixir where they didn't want to.
Well, the one that really turned the game, we just saw that there in the replay, the Dart Goblin. You can see this giant push, this looming boulder of a push coming down the opposite direction, and the Mega Knight getting there at the last second to seal that lane high against the graveyard. Dart Goblin just sits back and shoots darts for about 5,000 years. And that was, at that moment, you saw, right after that, Space Station calling GG. They knew it was all locked up. Brilliant play here by a duo that had not competed in an official CRL match together before.
I mean, they sacrificed so much elixir by keeping that Dark Goblin on the board because they were holding their log. They just didn't want to use their log because they were so worried about what would come in with that Goblin Barrel. But the problem is that Dark Goblin was exponentially more detrimental to them winning the match. And I don't know. I love that Lapo does what we expect him to do, which was BM the moment he had an opportunity.
Yeah, the exact moment, of course. And so now we head into King of the Hill, right? And you know what's coming out for Space Station. You know it's going to be Samuel, Lapo, and RF. Probably in that order is my guess. On the other side, this is where things get interesting. This is a legitimately talented team. You have one of the best 2.6 players on the planet, a great hog cycle player, a great bait player in Lucas, who's been phenomenal this year. People have been waiting to see him in CRL. And you have Vitor, a top tier player out of Portugal, part of their great run in the no-tilt worlds. What do you think about their chances here in King of the Hill against these superstars?
Not a lot, I'll be honest. And it's not because I don't have faith in their ability to play the game. It's because I have so much faith in the work that's been put in by Space Station Gaming since they were Immortals. It's like when you watch kids show up to college basketball or football the first day of training camp and they look at the seniors who look like they could eat them for breakfast. It's because of all the work they put in from being a freshman. It's all the weightlifting, it's all the dieting, it's all the training. You translate that into Clash, it's the 10,000 hours they've spent playing the game on their own, and then the 10,000 additional hours they spent at the pro level.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to put it differently than that. Of course, if you're talking about 4 players making their debut in CRL, this is one of those rosters who I think does have a chance. They could win this King of the Hill. I probably would say that it's 70-30 in my view towards Space Station, but you have 2 wild cards. You have Vitor, who's been great this season, performed phenomenally throughout a bunch of the non-CRL solo tournaments, and who's been an underdog as part of that sort of not quite recognized Portuguese scene. The Portugal scene overall is kind of insular. He's been an underdog for a long time, performed very well. And Lucas, I'm excited for CRL fans, if they haven't seen Lucas before, to see him here for the first time. Yeah. He is a masterful cycle player.
Well, there we go. We're going to have to wait for a bit on Lucas if we'll see him today here in King of the Hill, but we will see Vitor for sure. Wallace following that, Lucas to close things out. The other side of it, RF coming right back out after that great 2v2 set. Then the ladder god himself, Samuel Basoto, in second And of course, Lapacati taking a break from his 2v2 set, coming out last here in King of the Hill. And of course, if necessary, we will 100% will see Samuel in the 1v1 based off of the rules.
You know, I don't know what we're going to see in this King of the Hill. I do know that already Pain Gaming has won the war of hair. I mean, we said it once already. It's hard to choose who has the best hair overall out of the Brazilian squad.
Yeah, it's just so I mean, Lucas, I feel like, I think you said it, he looks like a young Fabio. I don't know if he'd appreciate that or not, or if he even knows who we're talking about, but that's neither here nor there. Let's hop in to game one at King of the Hill. Pain's Vitor, bottom of your screen, busting out the mortar against the God RF. And that
a lot of young players.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say the dirty barb hut.
So this is the most popular Grand Challenge deck in the game right now. Vitor running the Mortar Skeleton Barrel Cycle deck. Vitor is known as a giant player, but this one, of course, everyone's playing it. And if you did watch the No Tilt World Championships, you might recognize Vitor as making the top 8, making the final stage of that No Tilt World Championship. A very talented player getting his first shot here in CRL.
Yeah, so most likely going to be RG Barb Hut here coming out from RF, going up against this Mortar deck.
First minute away, and so far RF just slow playing here. First damage does come in courtesy of the log on the right-hand side, and Mortar opposite lane. Pigs immediately in response.
It's going to be Pigs instead of the RG, so the RG actually has an unfavorable matchup. We'll have to check and see what the Pigs have, but honestly, this should be pretty easy for Vitor to manage if he plays this right. If he has his Fireball and cycle when he needs it, the cycle of this deck is so quick, he should be able to get a second Mortar down. I'll be very curious to see how RF plays this.
So you see RF playing the Barb Hut low, going to defend with the Heal Spirit. But we'll see if he can cycle back around one more time. And that's the wild card here, Andrew, is that he can defend with the Barb Barrel and the Heal Spirit for those skeletons at the end. He can also pop the barrel early with the Musketeer if he wants to.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Barb starting to clog that left-hand lane as we approach double elixir time. And good fireball value there for the Portuguese player.
Really, really nice fireball value. So here we go,
and
Hogs, left-hand side. Yeah, right, you see that fireball come out. Mortar's going to come out in defense, maybe a Knight up high. There it is, very, very well played by Vitor.
Perfectly managed by Vitor, who won the 5th edition of the Moreno Cup back in 2019. Also has 3 #1 finishes in the global tournament.
So both these guys kind of taking it slow here in the beginning. RF probably trying to figure out how on earth he's going to be able to get those Hogs to tower. And honestly, I think it's going to have to come from dual lane pressure. And if he can, the ability to stack Barb Huts, which is really, really difficult to do with how expensive they are and how quickly this Mortar deck cycles.
Skeleton Barrel you see popping there a little bit early, courtesy of that Musketeer. Log takes it off, and Mortar going to work on that Barb Hut. Good pressure so far from Vitor. And now able to control. Does he have the Fireball back quickly enough? Elixir very low, but Fireball does come into play.
Yeah, I mean, that's the really tough thing for RF here is he has to imagine every single time that he's going to try to do those big pushes, there's basically no chance that Vitor cannot get back around to Fireball. I mean, even if he just played Fireball, you would have to be able to mount that big of a push before he can cycle 3 cards, which is very easy to do in this deck.
Mortar high this time. Will it get one shot on tower? No, it does not. Final 90 seconds, and Vitor now trying to put the pressure on. 1964 to 2181.
Yeah, I mean, RF just needs one good connection here on that right-hand tower to bring himself what feels like back in the game. Even though he's not really out of it, it just feels like he's having a very difficult time getting through.
Well, he might stack huts in this lane here in triple. It's a potential possibility.
Yeah.
If that becomes the case, then it gets very difficult for Vitor to hang on to it. Here we go. Nice prediction fireball out of Vitor.
Yeah, really, really nicely played. Skeletons come in, but it still does allow a couple to get through to that tower and a 5 elixir spent in response.
Gorgeous play. I mean, Vitor, unless he makes a mistake here, and triple elixir is where this gets dangerous for him, that prediction fireball just gave him a very, very nice lead. Can he protect it for 42 seconds?
So there you go, RF cycling everything he can in the back. Fireball going to come up high on top of that Musketeer. Now the Hogs come in with all that support behind. Did Vitor make a mistake with that Fireball? We'll find out.
Mortar high pulls a lot of them back. Fireball trying to make some room. One pig having a snack on the right-hand side. Second one comes in the joint.
There it is.
Sweet dinner is up and served. 20 seconds left. Pigs all over the right-hand side. Andrew, RF might take this one.
9:07 remaining on the bottom right. RF screams into the lead based off of some really, really nice, fast cycling here. Barb Hut back down. Battle at the river gonna happen. He's making him use his fireball where he doesn't want. Fireballs on both sides, and RF doing it again.
GG, well played. Vitor in control for so long, looked like he was pulling ahead, and RF capitalizing at the most important moment with a huge win here to open up King of the Hill.
I mean, that I feel like is one of the things that translates so well for a Graveyard player to any other deck. It's patience and knowing that you can never give up. Ever. Because obviously with Graveyard, any one good Graveyard can take a tower. Here, RF holding on as long as he did. He saw Vitor overextend just one time, and then he put the pressure on with all the fireball bait possible. He gets back around. Vitor cannot keep up with the cycle, and that second group of pigs coming in, it was just so well played by the God RF.
Well, it was that last fireball going to the Musketeer. I think we'll probably see this in the replay. But you saw that fireball went for tower damage and Musketeer when you had healthy skeleton dragons right at the bridge. And so I'm very curious to see if we go back and take a look at that one. Might have been just a little bit of poor decision-making by Vitor in that moment.
I mean, 100%. You and I both recognized it as it happened live on the broadcast. The fireball directly to that Musketeer and the tower felt like, isn't it a little too early to be selling out for tower damage? There's still so much time in the game, and right here you see this is kind of the result of what you and I were just talking about. Not having anything in cycle, not having a response, not having enough elixir to deal with this huge push from RF.
And you see, yeah, just so much getting through there at that moment, and that is one sequence behind what we were talking about, but a very important sequence nonetheless. At that point, the offensive fireball is just trying to hope that maybe something else breaks through, but that's a GG well played. And man, RF looking good so far here after a nice 2-1 win in 2v2. Currently 3-1 to start off his fall campaign.
3-1 for the God RF, and doing it with any deck out there because that is who he is now. If you look at him as a player, yes, he's probably the best Splash Yard player in the entire world, but over the last few years, he sure has expanded his decksmanship. No, I know. I've been trying to make it happen since 2017. It's not going to happen. I'll let it go. But that being said, it is really cool to see how much of a threat RF is with really any deck at his disposal.
Well, he really is, and that's part of what's put him into the top tier of this 2020. People, yeah. I've said this a lot. If you've been watching Bren Chong AMG Cup, the off-season stuff, I've said almost to the point of annoyance, where he's having the best 2020 of any player, in my opinion, and has a good shot at putting together the best, one of the best, if not the best years in Clash Royale history. And a big part of that is the versatility he's added to his deck pool. And you saw that some more right here. RF 1-0 so far. Coming up next, the Brazilian Wallace in King of the Hill for Pain Gaming.
Yeah, Wallace here, bottom of your screen. RF still at the top of your screen on a nice 3-game run is the God RF, with, of course, his teammate Aw Crap cheering him on in the background.
So a bit slower start this time than we saw in our previous game from these two.
Goblins Musketeer is RF going to Mortar.
It's not impossible, although the Stab Gobs as opposed to Spear Goblins is an interesting change.
Yeah, the old meta was the Valkyrie Musketeer, Stab Gobs, Mortar Poison, but honestly haven't seen much of that in a very long time.
So we'll see if he's going full-on triple spell with the Stab Goblins in place of the Skeletons. And it does, with 2 small spells, look like it's going to be essentially that deck. Bomb Tower, EQ as the remaining cards, or as 2 of the remaining cards in this deck, with, I believe, the Knight, if he's going with that version.
Should be.
And looking like part of the right-hand side, Mega Knight immediately in response.
Wallace maybe trying to bait out that bait out that hog, maybe hoping that RF thought he overspent on the Fireball Musketeer.
And there you go, Knight out to control the Mega Knight, and the Mega Knight leaps away. Does that get a King Tower activation? Nice control there from RF.
Beautiful, beautiful play by RF, and look at that. If you didn't see it, you heard it. A heal spirit came down to support that fisherman, and that made it so that that log coming in really, really evened up the elixir. Now you can see Wallace is only 1 elixir in the lead, but now with the King Tower activated on the opposite side of the map. Beautiful plays from the God RF.
8,016, 8016, the personal best on ladder for Wallace, the Brazilian player who has his best finish of 18th overall, so a top 20 finish on ladder, nothing to shake your head out. Of course, RF has a pair of number 2 finishes on his side.
So here we go, Bomb Tower down, Mega Knight left, Musketeer right. Most likely gonna just, yep, I was gonna say either ignore or very lightly deal with that Musketeer.
And Heal Spirit does survive. Log doesn't quite get there. Maybe RF looking at that Heal Spirit like, come on, man, you're supposed to die. EQ cycle from the Space Station player.
Yeah, EQ cycle and a Mega Knight down in the left-hand lane. Kind of surprising there. Now you're definitely going to see a Hog Rider go down in the left.
We should be back to his Fisherman fairly soon here. There you go. The Knight goes down and Fisherman does pull the Hog Rider. So in good control on that is Wallace. And here we go. Pigs to the left-hand lane. Bomb Tower, just enough elixir, but that puts RF down at 0.
Yeah, and one of those pigs do get through to the tower, now giving Wallace the lead. And both guys really did a great job of managing that last push there. Snowball allows that Hog to get a hit.
1610 on the left-hand side to 1633, just 23 HP separating these two as we go into sudden death overtime, and that's a very healthy Mega Knight. Fireball does not get the Musketeer from the Brazilian.
Wow, and you talk about really shooting yourself in the foot. Wallace did a great job of getting that Musketeer down immediately to deal with the Knight that the God RF played in defense, but unfortunately, by that misplay with the Fireball, he ends up sacrificing a ton of tower damage, and honestly, maybe even the game could have been taken right there.
Snowball just to create a little bit more room here, buy some time. Trying to distract that Mega Knight the best he can, but this Bomb Tower is going to go down. A second one gets down in time, though, to pick up the pigs.
Yeah, the God RF managing this really, really well, even when he's down a couple elixir at a time. As you can see right now, he's down 2, but has that Bomb Tower on the board. Fisherman will not be distracted by it.
Cycle here very, very quick for RF. Interesting, going with the Goblins version as opposed to the Skeletons version does cost 1 more elixir, slow things down, and that log does its job taking the Heal Spirit off the board.
Yeah, and honestly, in this specific matchup, RF would have really enjoyed to have those Skeletons just because he's mainly using his Goblins as a distraction for the Mega Knight. Doing that with 1 less elixir would have been really, really nice for him.
And maybe he thought that he was going to be up against Graveyard and wanted those Goblins to last a little bit longer on defense, potentially. Here we go, EQ cycle on the left-hand side. 10:34 remains with 20 seconds left.
Yeah, this spell cycle is becoming really, really brutal for Wallace to deal with. That being said, the game's definitely not out of his hands yet. RF going to need to make a pretty big misplay here moving forward, though, to not seal this deal.
Fireball in.
Mega Knight!
Oh, my word! Mega Knight, 895. EQ trying to beat it out. Log trying to
He's
get there.
He's going to beat it! He beats it!
Oh,
wow! My! And you look at him, he looks over it, most likely... crap, going, oh my god, I just got away with murder.
Absolute steal there. Wallace, for a second, seemed like he'd taken it, but the spell cycle wins out. Good mathematics by RF, and now he is 2-0 and 1 win away from giving us our second sweep in King of the Hill to kick off this season.
And I'm not sure what he was showing us there on his phone, but all I could see is a big smile on his face. He knows he got away with one there. Wallace, great, great plays. My God, there were so many good plays by Wallace. Even the predictive Fireball, the predictive Musketeer. If only the Fireball landed. If only the Fireball landed, we'd be talking about something probably a little bit different right now, but that's the thing about playing at the top 1%. Sometimes one mistake is all it takes.
And that's, I think, been the theme so far for this Pain Gaming team, and maybe it's nerves, whatever it is. We've seen now a couple of plays where you're just 1 tile off, a bit of a fat fingering here.
Yeah.
We saw it in the 2v2 with the Goblin Cage, saw it here with the Fireball. Just a couple of misplays. It's been 1 misplay in each game, in each of these lost games.
And you know, I think what's so great about this replay that you're bringing up is just that enjoyed looking at RF's face during all of this because I was panicking for him. But as you look at both of these, his defense is basically perfect. Now, yes, there is the slight misplay, and it almost happened to him one exchange earlier with the Mega Knight. But as you can see, barely gets that spell cycle in and closes things out.
So, second verse, essentially same as the first. We are one win away now from another King of the Hill sweep. Yeah. RF managing the game perfectly, but now he has the most difficult player on the Pain Gaming roster, Lucas Gamer, who again, as I said before, one of the top 2.6 players on the planet. I doubt we'll see it here today, guys, in this situation, but you never know. A great bait player, and probably, except for maybe Schwarzen, the highest touted rookie coming into this season.
Yeah, definitely a name that I've heard a lot, and I'm very excited to see how he plays today. Really, really rough day for the Blue squads in general. Both of them picking up their first game win, but then dropping all the rest of their games in a row. So right now, Lucas trying to turn things around, not only for Pain Gaming, but just for the home team in general on Saturday. Coming out, Lucas has to take down the God RF, Samuel Basoto, Lapacati, and then they have to go into 1v1 and take out Samuel Basoto once again. A huge uphill battle in store for Pain Gaming.
Well, this is the guy you want trying to do it. I mean, you never want to be in this situation, but Lucas has nerves of steel. First place finishes on ladder, 81.73 personal best. He's won the global tournament 3 times, won the Moreno Cup before. This guy has experience. He's not going to blink in this moment.
You know, I got to admit, obviously a little disappointed not seeing AC today. Big fan of him, but I think I'm most disappointed by the fact that I don't get to see Lucas's hair in real time right now.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy, come on. That actually, I'm noticing that right now, and it is an absolute tragedy.
So here we go. EQ cycle early on, hitting both of those because he's not worried about that King Tower activation. And, of course, Lumberloon coming out right-hand side.
Heal Spirit gets taken care of by the log. And that balloon's going to connect, I believe. Yes, it does. Get one raged up hit. Massive. 1277 remains on the right-hand side as the first minute of gameplay passes.
Bomb Tower played a little low. Rage comes in. Great snowball there from Lucas to allow that hit, but RF responds handedly on the left-hand side.
Huge connection, and just like that, back in control. And that's what makes RF great. He does not panic in any single moment. We've talked about it before. That's why Luis had him play in the seeding tournament at Worlds in 2018 in Tokyo. The guy is ice cold.
Yeah, but this becomes a really difficult game for RF to win moving forward. If you look, he's only got one card that can actually directly focus on air, which is his Musketeer. The Bomb Tower is there to help, but if you look at his win condition in the Hog Rider, there's the Snowball, there's the Fisherman, there's the Lumberjack. A lot of great things there for Lucas to respond with.
Yeah, we'll see how well RF controls, and there you go. The 6 Loon is the deck, going with this version rather than the Snowball Bar Barrel version. You probably would have seen Bar Barrel earlier if that were going to be the case. We'll see how well RF uses the Bomb Tower Snowball combination to pull the balloon and then snowball the balloon back into range instead. Pushes it up high and goes with the Musketeer instead.
I like that. Pushes it out of range so the Musketeer can lock on. However, still going to get that death damage in. And honestly, if that snowball came in a half second sooner, maybe even would have got another tower hit.
Look
Great
at
goblins.
the high goblins.
Yeah,
wow.
Man. Beautiful 800 IQ play.
Phenomenal prediction on that Fisherman, and that might win him the game here. Balloon will be raged up, Bomb Tower goes high, and this Snowball should push the Bomb Tower back into bomb range, and there you go.
Yep. I mean, and this is kind of where you separate the men from the boys, correct? Now, you're able to do certain things over and over on ladder, and you're able to make these smart plays on ladder, but you do the same defense twice in a row against a CRL Pro, they're going to punish you for it. And that's exactly what the God RF did with a huge sweep. Oh my God.
Yeah, there you go. Sweep number 2. It's sweep day today, and was that the yawn emote out of RF on camera? A little flex there all the way. Now, I don't know if, I believe that maybe these guys might have rented an apartment in Los Angeles. I'm not entirely sure where they are. Obviously, AC and RF together. But I know whatever it is, they're going to be going out and having a nice socially distanced celebration today.
Oh man, what a day for RF, what a day for Spacestation Gaming coming in down 1-man, and also what a day for my fantasy team, baby. RF, let's go.
Yeah, that was a nice pickup there for you. Solid choice on grabbing RF. King of the Hill sweep, reverse sweep in 2v2, stacking crowns there, and that's why with this King of the Hill second format, picking a 2v2 player who you know is going to be in King of the Hill is often a pretty good idea for your rosters.
Man, just done with so much swagger. You see here, this is actually the first trade that happened. This was right after we had a huge balloon connection on the right-hand side. RF decides to double down on the left, go for what looks like a tower trade maybe early on. So that was a really nice decision to keep him in the game in those first few moments. But then it's about this. Look at that timing, my friend. It doesn't get better than that. Because he doesn't double drop him. He takes a half second to delay to make sure that his opponent is going to commit with that Fisherman first. So the timing lines up perfectly. GG, well played, 1-0 Space Station.
Yeah, absolute brilliance out of Space Station Gaming. And look, you take out one of their most experienced players in 2v2 and aw crap, and they go, yeah, but we have Akrap's practice partner, former Rookie of the Season, Rookie of the Year, and Lapakati. He'll jump in, and we'll be fine here in 2v2. That's scary for everyone else involved, because you were kind of hoping that maybe AC being benched opened up the door for Space Station to take at least one, if not two losses in these opening weeks. Not going to happen so far.
Well, and you know what's so fascinating about this is if you go back and you look at the record of Space Station Gaming, they were so dominant in 2v2 and Immortals for so long. Now, yes, they struggled a little bit more in the spring than they had in their tenure in CRL, but my point is that if you have a team that usually is taking that 2v2 and you have a player that rides emotion so high like Lapakati and a guy that's not affected by it in the God RF, it really sets your team up for success. If you're picking up 60 to 70% of those 2v2s, that means Lapakati is feeling 60 to 70% better in that King of the Hill most of the time. It just feels like a really dangerous place for anyone to be up against Space Station.
Yeah, and I mean, talk about dangerous place. King of the Hill against Space Station is an absolute gauntlet. King of the Hill being second, I think, benefits Space Station tremendously, especially when you have RF playing the way he is. Think of the monster now. You have to go through RF, who might not even let you get a shot. And if you can beat him, then it's Lapakati, then it's Samuel. It's just complete insanity. It seems like, I'm going to call this early in the season, I cannot see Space Station Gaming missing World Finals. I think they're going to be top 4. It's going to be really hard to keep them out of that top 4, in my opinion.
It's crazy to say that, seeing that they're down one player, but you know what? They showed us something crazy today. Guys, we'll be back in 5 minutes with Team Queso and Misfits Gaming. Don't move a muscle.
final match of the day on our opening weekend for Clash Royale League West's fall split. Once again, I'm Rich Slayton with my friend and partner Andrew Guy, always here to bring you the best that Clash Royale has to offer. We just saw our second King of the Hill sweep in a row. Yeah. And not just that, but the God RF, because he played that 2v2 set without his longtime partner AC, is now the sole possessor of the most wins in 2v2 history in CRL West at 59 total game wins. So congratulations, wow, RF, on sole possession of the record.
So, two guys that have been in the league just as long as the God RF are Benihu and Kuchiku of Team Queso, but two guys that are maybe a little bit more, I guess, new to the CRL scene, kind of, with IMJP leaving West, coming back, leaving. But him and Ruben and what they did in the offseason for Team Queso and what they did for the Clash Royale scene competitively in general is nothing shy of extraordinary and honestly horrifying if you're playing against Team Queso.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big concern for a lot of people. Our next matchup going to be Team Queso and Misfits. Misfits, of course, getting second place last season, but losing a massive piece in Razor going over to the other team, to the other side, to Team Liquid. And we're going to jump right into game number one of our 2v2 match. So let's waste no more time. It's going to be Kuchiku and Benihu for Team Queso, and the rookies, Bob the Rock and Schwarzen, coming out for Misfits.
So here we go. Bob the Rock and Schwarzen representing Misfits at the top of your screen, about to defend this graveyard. And of course, Benihu and Kuchiku representing Team Queso, where they've been their entire careers, at the bottom of your screen. And Rich, this feels like a make or break season for Benny and Kuchi.
Yeah, I mean, they've been part of the Team Queso system for a long time. They helped win that European Championship in the first season of CRL, and yeah, a miss with the bar barrel on that baby dragon, just a little bit ill-timed there from Kuchi and Benny. Look, they've been in the league for a long time. They're a big part of the Team Queso community, really positive influences as well. But if this season doesn't go well for Queso, considering how good JP and Ruben are right now, there'll be some questions, but first we have a lot of season to play with these two veterans.
Wow, and that is actually going all in the veterans' favor right there. A beautiful Magic Archer lineup to get some piercing damage on the tower. A NATO in response out of Bob the Rock and Schwarzen that re-lines up that Magic Archer and wastes the 3 elixir.
Here we go, final minute approaching, double elixir on its way. Schwarzen and Bob, both rookie pickups to replace the loss of Razor. Trainer Dippet's now moving into a staff role with Misfits, doing his great job with analysis. Bob is a very experienced 2v2 player, was the 2v2 partner of St. Bellican for a long time in the semi-pro scene, starting in CCS, the Clash Contender Series. In fact, Belly wanted Bob to be a part of his CRL team as well. It didn't happen, but now he gets his shot here at Misfits.
Yeah, and some really, really nice poison value coming in here for Queso's Benny and Kuchi, but they're going to have to deal with a really, really large push coming in and a graveyard most likely on the back end. So we'll see exactly how they want to deal with it. And Giant Skeleton is their answer.
And you see this time not taking any chances with that Magic Archer, getting it poisoned and logged off early. So here we go. The lead slightly held by Kuchi and Benny, 12:35 to 14:29. Can they hold on as we go into sudden death?
And some really, really nice poison value again from the Team Queso representatives. Getting that Ice Wiz all the way down, taking out the Heal Spirit, but not getting the Ice Wiz off the board could be trouble.
A high freeze on defense, but a freeze on offense as well.
That's it!
NATO, woo! Bob and Schwarzen come out in style in game number one.
Wow, and you see right there, Benny and Kuchi very, very frustrated, feeling like they were in control for the entire game. But then that double freeze, one defensively, one offensively, and that's why you hold it. That's why you always hold freeze until you can surprise your opponent or until you are forced to play it as a necessity on defense.
Game number one for Schwarzen and Bob, and we didn't get to give them their proper introduction, but that's a good enough one for anybody, I would say. A big win here to open things up. Schwarzen, one of the few semi-pros who the scene was clamoring. The question had been, who's going to pick up Schwarzen? Not if he'll get a contract, but who will give him a contract. Was rumored to be part of SK, being a German himself, ends up here with Misfits, and of course, as I said, Bob has been making himself invaluable as a 2v2 player in the semi-pro scene over the course of the last year. and now finally gets his shot at the big stage.
Yeah, a name that you and I had heard a lot of people kind of rumbling about back in 2019, and here he is making his CRL debut with a great win over Queso's Benny and Kuchi. And you know, back to what we were saying, Benny and Kuchi being around for as long as they have, being such great personalities, such great, you know, guys to have on your team chemistry-wise, but they've got to bring home the W. And seeing that Benny and Kuchi are the two coming out today, it does feel like that is who Queso is going to want to go with. They were kind of their secret duo back when it was NA and EU, and they honestly dominated people. But ever since then, they've really struggled to kind of put together a 2v2 squad that's really even holds a candle to what they did in their first season.
It's going to be curious to see how that affects the team overall. I will say this, that the shortened season and 1v1 being second set, I think hurt Queso in the spring, right? Not many chances to recover, a lot of pressure on that 1v1 set. I think King of the Hill being second with how good Ruben and JP are. Ruben is an S+ tier player, top 3, top 5 in the world, and JP is an A tier player, like very high up there as well. They just went 1-2 in the Bren Chong Cup a couple of weeks ago. I think that King of the Hill being second helps out a lot, but Benny and Kuchi have to carry at least some of those 2v2s.
Yeah, because we know that King of the Hill really is the wild card. Any given thing can happen on any given day. Any one person can sweep any team. It's happened every single season where you and I are jaw-dropped, saying wow a million times because some guy that we never expected to sweep did it, right? So if that's the case, then what is Team Queso's best thing? That is getting a good 2v2 duo to ensure that you can win the game in 2 sets. Like you said, IMJP and Ruben in King of the Hill and then dealing with them again in 1v1 seems brutal, but you gotta be able to get to that 1v1 set, and that comes from taking care of the 2v2.
So we'll see what kind of adjustments Benny and Kuchi make in game number 2, and this is the duo that Misfits wants to go with, and no surprises here with it being Bob and Schwarz, and of course Bob being very experienced in 2v2, but also you really want to free up Air Surfer and Wings. The other two parts of this team. The second place from last season, Wings, probably the best King of the Hill player overall in the game, especially in CRL West, and then Air Surfer, just nasty head-to-head player. So we'll see what they do here in game number 2, but no surprise with this lineup from Misfits.
Yeah, it does make a whole lot of sense. You definitely want to let your King of the Hill players shine, and you know, Wings has never been a huge fan of playing in the 2v2, and Air Surfer in 1v1, that's his bread and butter.
So Lava Hound for Misfits in game number 2, and same thing for Team Queso in this second stanza.
So we see Lava Hound, Night Witch, and Flying Machine from Team Queso, and you have to wonder, are they going to go with the clone? And then top of your screen...
It certainly feels that way.
Yeah, it really does. Top of your screen, we saw, I believe, maybe our first 2v2 matchup had this deck?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of which version of Lava Hound. We did see, I think... Did we see Flying Machine in that version of Lava Hound? But it wasn't a clone deck, I don't believe.
Yeah, the top of the screen, though, is what I was focusing on, but I honestly think that the top is earlier they had the minor, so maybe this is a new version here we're seeing.
So the 2 ships pass in the night, first minute 15 away, and no significant damage. And the Lumberjack makes it really feel like this is almost 100% clone out of Queso.
Yeah, agreed, and you know, that being dropped there, probably something that Schwarzen and Bob the Rock have noted, and gonna try to hold on to that poison.
1492, Columbus sailing to that right-hand tower as we approach the final 20 seconds before double elixir kicks in.
Well, this is gonna be big. I think this will be probably the first, or maybe the last non-sellout push here.
Flying Machine low for Team Queso, and gonna hold on to that poison defensively as much as possible.
Poison going down, up on that tower. Taking out a lot of good stuff there, getting some decent tower damage in here.
And this looks like a pretty big push for Team Queso.
Yeah, there they go. Lumberjack in the back trying to go right on through. They catch it with that Dark Prince, but Lava Hound still just chilling. Ooh, a great heal spirit. Yeah, man, that was awesome.
That's keeping that push around for a long time, and this is, I think, where we're going to start getting close to that first clone, if they can get past. And now that poison played offensively out of Schwarzen and Bob the Rock, I don't even know if Team Queso needs a clone at this stage.
They honestly might not. I mean, they've been playing this so well, and that beautiful heal spirit played up high, just knowing the exact range to trigger it, getting that heal in was a huge swing in the game, and there's the King Tower activation.
Well, you like that they're holding on a little bit here because, you know, you have to keep track of the baby dragons, the NATO, and the poison, and this should be enough. Kuchi and Benny win game number 2, send us to a third and final game.
And honestly, still a beautiful fireball there in at the end with that miner. Yes, it was probably just to hit anything on the board, but I honestly think they were looking for those barbs that were played in the back. So even if those barbs had surrounded the miner, still would have taken them off the board, taken down the tower. Team Queso's Benny and Kuchi looking like they did back in 2017.
Well, you see the coordination there, too, of whether they were dragging or talking. Miner to the front inside of the number 3 spot, fireball to the same spot. So they certainly were well coordinated there with that moment, because you can see the miner in Kuchi's hand and the fireball in Benny's hand. So that's teamwork from the 2 best friends here in game number 2.
Yeah, and a big tip of the hat from all of us here to Team Queso and what they've been doing. As you can see with their setup, they've got a great room that Benny and Kuchi are literally sitting right next to each other in, and that's where you've been seeing all that extra content coming from. So here we go. You can see this flying machine here at the middle, but it's really about that minor fireball on the tower just to kind of close things out. If those barbs had surrounded it, it would have been still tower down based off of a nice predictive fireball from Benny and Kuchi.
I think the poison was in there as well, so they were just load it all up right there, turn it into a full-on Heartstopper Philly cheesesteak, and let's get this tower down on the right-hand side. So Kuchi and Benny in good form in game number 2 and controlled it well, didn't overextend themselves at all, and getting a big win here over the rookies. Are we going to see rookies take a set today? So far, we haven't seen that happen.
Yeah, it's been really, really tough, and I don't know, because I was actually just going to ask you, do you think the rookies won that first game based off of outplaying them, or just sheer shock value with when that freeze came in? Now, that is technically outplaying them, holding that freeze as long as they did, but it's almost kind of gimmicky, right? Like almost to the extent of why we were talking about Kuchi and Benny not even needing to use a clone if it were available.
Well, it's one of those things where they were in a position already that they created where the defensive freeze had to come out up high to save the tower for Kuchi and Benny. So while the freeze is what closed things out, they'd already put Team Queso in a really bad spot in game number 1, which allowed that freeze to be so effective in that moment. So you can call freeze gimmicky in that point. Freeze is a pretty big part overall of the 2v2 meta, which is why we saw it banned in our first match of the day. I think it was just very well played by Schwarzen and Bob, creating a situation where that freeze could come out and close the game for them.
Yeah, you know, I actually agree, and I think we're having a little bit of technical difficulties right now. It appears that maybe the stream might be held up for just a moment, so if you guys could please bear with us, we are working on figuring that out.
Man, I'm just, you know, the technical difficulties aside, I just want to get into game number 2. I'm so excited to see Kuchi and Benny playing well together. Bob and Schwarzen with some style in game number 1. The question, of course, can they actually come back in game number 2 and pull out the set victory here? I know that you guys are chomping at the bit to see the game get back on track. I know I'm chomping at the bit to see the game get back on track. And I'm really excited to see also which one of these guys, my guess is Schwarzen coming out in King of the Hill. I'm excited to see when we get there as well, because we get to see Wings and Air Surfer back in action. And if you've been following along during the offseason, Air Surfer took number 2 overall at the No Tilt World Championships alongside his teammate Schwarzen, who made the top 8. So you have 2 players who were in the top 8 finalists overall for the Solo World Championship. That makes Misfits very exciting for King of the Hill against 2 of the best in JP and Ruben.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people might forget how well Misfits performed last season, ending at number 2, 4-2 on the season. I mean, that is a really, really dominant performance from a team that we've kind of been waiting to really rise to the top, if you will. You know, Cream always rises to the top. We were waiting for Misfits to get that. So ending 4-2 on the season, but now adding in these young superstars, the potential, I guess the ceiling is endless here for them, but they got to be able to put it together early on. Yes, we have more matches this season, but still, these guys on the other end of it, these veterans, these squads that have been in for as long as since day one, since the inception of the league, the experience really seems to be trumping them today. I mean, you said it yourself. Will there be a rookie set win today? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Benny and Kuchi looked really good in that one, and but Bob and Schwarzen, Bob and Schwarzen looked fine overall. But what we've seen so far is the difference in one mistake versus no mistakes, and that's the big difference we've seen throughout this event so far today. I mean, we've seen 2 5-1 overall match victories, and we've seen them come from players who are completely ice cold. You have St. Bellican, you have the God RF, who are both so experienced and both so calm. And so the question here is, will those nerves hold up as time goes on?
I mean, they still obviously have the benefit of playing at home and playing in the comfort of a place that they've gotten very accustomed to playing in. That being said, I don't know how many times they've played with this many people watching, with their games mattering this much. And it's tough to say because we haven't had the ability to speak to any of the rookies that have lost today. I mean, that's one of the great things about us being in the studio, is that after a game goes poorly for one team, if they're willing to, you maybe run into them in the hallway and go, hey man, so what happened out there? Or you can see them frustrated with themselves. You're like, yo, what's up? We weren't actually able to talk to any of the rookies yet today, and I'm curious to see if nerves is a factor, because honestly, for me, man, nerves are always a big factor.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody who does watch my stream when I play Clash Royale, I can't even play comfortably in front of the few people watching me stream, right? So when I'm actually doing my own games, I get completely nervous, completely freaked out. The pressure doesn't work for me, so you have to imagine what the pressure is like when you know that literally thousands of people worldwide are watching you in multiple different languages play at the highest level.
I know, you and I have talked about how we're like, can we just get a private mode? Because that one viewer is ruining my ladder push.
Yeah, right? Even when you're not streaming, even just in-game, you see that eyeball pop up and you're like, no.
Just leave me alone. I'm playing perfectly. Don't ruin this for me. So.
You make one mistake and you see the eyeball disappear and you're like, oh no, even you don't have faith in me right now.
Yep. And then you go through your friends list after you somehow pull out a clutch win. You're like, did you know that I won? Was that you watching? Because I ended up winning. So that's something that's happened. But back to something that's happening. It's this 2v2 set between Misfits and Team Queso. We're tied at 1 right now. Benny and Kuchi came out and maybe put experience on the map in game 2, but in game 1, it was the firepower, the rookies going all out with that freeze at the end to lock it down. So there you go. There are bans, there are squads. Kuchi and Benny banning Fisherman, Schwarzen and Bob the Rock banning Musketeer.
Game number 3 on its way in just a moment, and thanks everyone for bearing with us. We are doing this all remote. That's what's happening in this day and age, so I'm at my place, Andrew's at his house, the players are all over the world. We're dealing with a lot of different things technically that we can't handle all in a studio together, so we do appreciate you bearing with us on the occasional technical hiccup, and we are back in. Here we go. Game number 3 in our 2v2 set.
Whew, all right. I'm very, very curious to see how this game is going to go. It felt like game 1 really went in the favor of Misfits, and then obviously game 2 really went in the favor of Queso, but Queso felt like they were more in control for both of those games, obviously until the end moments of game 1.
Cannon cart out for Schwarzen and Bob with the heal spirit behind. We'll see if they have any chance of getting at the tower, or if the cannon cart really in this deck is more about acting as a second building to pull and distract.
And the Inferno Tower just getting a ton of value.
First minute away. So far, no significant damage. You see Schwarzen set up with the giant skeleton of his own in that left-hand lane.
And Benny and Kuchi decide to go on the aggressive, get their giant skeleton up front, and hopefully clear some room for this Royal Giant. And that's a good play by them.
Go ahead, Andrew.
I was just going to say, that's a really, really nice play by Team Queso, kind of focusing on what they wanted to pay attention to, knowing that if they doubled down and sent all their elixir in, they were going to get a lot of tower damage because of the negligence by Schwarzen and Bob the Rock with that giant skeleton.
Passing the halfway point of our opening 3 minutes, and you have Team Queso currently in the lead off of that great play that my co-caster was just mentioning. Benny, who an 8K player, 8,053 his personal best. Kuchiku not far off that, 80-90 for the veteran and teammate.
Wow. Even guys that aren't head-to-head stars are hanging out in the 8Ks.
Yeah, right? It's absolutely insane.
Really nice heal spirit once again here from Team Queso. Their heal spirit work has been excellent today.
And the Skeleton Dragon's high outside of and at the end of that poison burning off. Really, really sharp there, forcing the Baby Dragon high out of Misfits.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Queso, that shield will not fall off of the Dark Prince there, so a Lumberjack has to come down to assist the Hunter, maybe a little bit more elixir than they wanted, now expediting this push.
Inferno Tower does pull off. Nice NATO fireball, raged up Royal Giant. Log tries to knock it back, but Misfits doesn't have a lot to stop this.
No, they do not. No building, no elixir for their building. The Log comes in, but honestly, that 2 elixir almost feels useless because so many shots came in on that raged up Royal Giant, and now you can see so much splash damage on the back end here.
NATO freeze trying to make a case for it, but the heal spirit puts all that back into play, and now you have 2 skeleton dragons, 2 giant skeletons, a lumberjack, and a partridge in a pear tree going to the left-hand lane. Royal Giant behind.
Yeah, what do they say? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice. Not gonna happen. Really, really nice use of all of their defensive splash cards, knowing that probably a graveyard was gonna come in with a freeze eventually as a last-ditch effort by Misfits. And Rich, it's been the exact same tune all day, and that's game 1 going one way and the rest of it going to the veterans.
And you can see a big sigh from Schwarzen and Bob on their side, just kind of looking at that going, oh man, we really thought that we had this one. But Kuchi and Benny putting together a very, very great performance. And again, we're talking about the experience playing together, managing that game very well.
Yeah, and honestly, Rich, this was a more important game for Team Queso and Benny, who and Kuchi, we'll say set instead of game. More important set for Benny and Kuchi than it was for Schwarzen and Bob the Rock. I truly believe that. No one expected Schwarzen and Bob the Rock to come out and be the best 2v2 duo you've ever seen in your life. Maybe they win, maybe they lose. It's only their first day. But if Benny and Kuchi come out and get stomped by rookies in match day 1, then it puts a lot of pressure on Ruben and IMJP for the rest of the season. This was a huge moment for Team Queso.
Yeah, a great win overall, and this was the big push that controlled everything. And NATO in the mix. NATO Fireball together, pretty cleaned up. The Hunter behind does not go off early enough, and a super raged up Royal Giant put this pretty much out of reach for Misfits.
Yeah, and one thing I really have to commend Team Queso for is their aggressive Royal Giants and aggressive Giant Skeletons right at the river when they recognized we've got enough elixir to defend, they don't have too much elixir to punish us, and we could probably get a couple shots in here. They did that time and time again until the very end with what we just saw in the replay. The NATO plus the Fireball really sealed the deal.
And you got to wonder right now how much Misfits is missing having Razor. 2 very talented young players have joined the team, but you know, you lost one of the best 2v2 players overall. Of course, lost the set today with his new partner Canario, but Razor did not lose a regular set. They gave up one of their 2v2s at the end of last regular season because they were kind of goofing off. They'd already qualified.
Right.
They were changing things up, giving guys some shots, but Razor was stone cold last season, and we saw here maybe some rookie jitters in this one.
Yeah, so did that go the way that you guys thought with your Fantasy Royale? How much closer are you to those 250,000 gold pieces or those 100 gems? I gotta say, my team is doing pretty well so far today, but a lot of surprises, honestly, throughout these matches. Like I said, I have RF, but still a lot to be said about those other 3 guys, including the 2 rookies on my squad. So let us know. You can let us know on Twitter if you'd like. I mean, tweet at us. Who knows? Rich, who's coming out first, you think, here in King of the Hill?
Man, this is going to be a really interesting King of the Hill. Obviously, JP and Ruben in on the Team Queso side. I think they probably put Benny out and probably put Benny out third, actually. I think they just go ahead and front load with Ruben and JP, maybe even send out Ruben first in this King of the Hill on the Queso side. And it's going to be JP. So JP is first, and they go Kuchi as the anchor here. And then no big surprises here. Throw wings out on the front end, Air Surfer in the back, make a Schwarzen sandwich for Misfits.
I'm a little surprised to see Air Surfer in that final spot because he's most likely going to be their head-to-head guy if they make it to that 1v1 set. But that being said, if they do make it to the 1v1 set, it's going to be only based off of them winning, so maybe his confidence will be high. It just always feels odd to put someone in the last spot at King of the Hill and then right into 1v1.
Yeah, that is interesting. It makes me wonder if maybe they're going to go with Wings in 1v1 if we get to that point. But who knows? I mean, also, it's one of those things where Wings likes to lead off King of the Hill. He likes to come out swing and not let his teammates get involved on the King of the Hill set. So maybe that's what they're hoping, is that they win this either in 3 or 4 games, and Air Surfer is fresh for the 1v1 rather than going to a Game 5.
Yeah, and just to kind of take a look over here at the chat, since we have a moment while we're letting our King of the Hill get set, I saw people asking about, is Giant Skeleton meta? Well, in 2v2, it definitely feels like it is meta, and there was a moment last year where it was starting to be meta, or last season, I should say, where it started to be meta in head-to-head play, but it feels like it's kind of slipped only into 2v2. Do you have any strong thoughts on that, Rich?
There's a Giant Skeleton balloon deck that's still pretty popular in 1v1. It's like the 3rd most popular or 2nd most popular balloon deck out of those ones. But it's the Lumberloon cycle is so much more popular, you just don't see it very often.
Yeah,
but it is pretty meta for 2v2.
Yeah, so hopefully that answers your question there in the chat. And, thanks for hanging with us.
So you see JP playing full on the feet. Not sure what Wings' standing, sitting situation. And as you said before, I gotta love the beautiful Team Queso house.
Yeah.
Where not only, people forget they make a lot of great content there out of Team Queso house, and this is also the same place where they won the No Tilt League Special Edition before our spring split. So Team Queso certainly feeling comfortable in their digs.
Yeah, and this is a big moment for IMJP. I mean, going up against the King of the Hill God himself in Wings and trying to prove how good he really is here in CRL, because he's done so much in so many off-season events.
Wings is tied for first in most King of the Hill wins at 30 with Canario. 64% win rate overall, but JP trying to lower that a little bit here with a huge balloon connection, and Wings calling good game, knows he got caught.
I mean, he just played the Goblin Cage in the wrong spot. It happened once again. You saw it from a rookie today, now you're seeing it from the best King of the Hill player in the history of Clash Royale League, from Wings. He plays that Gob Cage just out in no man's land.
We'll see if Wings can try to battle back and at least make this a 2-tower game, but Graveyard in a 2-tower game certainly struggles quite a bit. Final minute, double elixir on its way, and this JP played this right, recognizing he was against Graveyard and getting aggressive early. When you're playing 6 Loon against Graveyard, that's the story, did it perfectly, and now it's his game to lose.
Yeah, just how incredibly frustrating for Wings to misclick a Goblin Cage in the set that you're really supposed to bring home for your squad. So, if we look at the micro of this, it's obviously that play by Wings. If you look at the macro of it, what does this say about Misfits and their whole entire squad? You got your 2v2 duo going out there and kind of getting stomped, and then here you got your King of the Hill kind of ringer, your superstar, your ace, dropping game 1.
I mean, it's the first match of the season, obviously. It's a tough matchup in single as well. But it's one of those things where you got to wonder how that impacts confidence going forward and how easily Wings regroups and gets ready for their next match, which is tomorrow.
Yeah, so here we go. Aggressive Graveyard at the river. Maybe able to steal the tower in the final moments. Nope, not going to happen. And Wings going to be in and out, up and down real quick here in King of the Hill. And I do agree with what you're saying. It is just one game, and we've seen him kind of have these moments here and there over his tenure, his career, but it's definitely a really frustrating day for Misfits in general.
Well, to also lose that game on a misplay as well.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, the matchup can be challenging. Wings really wants to get that to triple elixir where you can start cycling graveyards, and it's not easy against that Loon cycle deck. But to lose it on a misplay is got to be so much more frustrating than anything else.
Yeah, and kind of a rough one there for Wings, but still 2 more reps coming out for Misfits. Obviously, we're going to have Schwarzen up next. Following that will be their head-to-head star, Air Surfer, but IMJP making it look easy in game number 1. However, Wings did do a pretty good job of getting damage in on that bottom right-hand tower, as you can see from the graphic there below IMJP.
JP extends his King of the Hill record to 10-4, a 71% lifetime CRL win rate in the King of the Hill set at this point, and There you see the balloon connecting hard on the left-hand side, and the GG called early by Wings.
Yeah, it's just, you know, it's funny because when you and I were casting the Bren Chong finals that just happened, you and I were kind of celebrating a play of a skeleton dragon pushing a balloon away from a building plate in defense. And people in chat were like, that's not even, people do that all the time. You're right, they do. They just did it right here in CRL, and it worked. So that's why we highlight plays like that, because even the best in the world will get outsmarted by a simple interaction such as that.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where you want to play that cage as far away as possible for the furthest pull, but you open up that possibility as well. So Wings out, JP still in. Coming up next for Misfits is going to be the rookie Schwarzen, who, like we said before, is coming off of a great performance, making the top 8 at the No Tilt World Championship, which was such a hard thing to do. You had to qualify with the 20-win challenge, then go through the gauntlet in Stage 2, winning, I think, 9 BO3s in a row, plus 2 BO5s, and then go through the round-robin group stage with 8 players from your region who all did that same thing to make that final. So Schwarzen, certainly a talented head-to-head player. The question is, how does he deal with the nerves here in probably the biggest set? And his nerves came to him a little bit during that No Tilt World Championship final stage. So I'm curious about that here against JP.
Yeah, here we go. I am JP, a veteran of the league, going up against Schwarzen, who has really, truly made a name for himself in this 2020 offseason.
Zap cycled by the German to open things up. And it is interesting to see a lot of players aren't comfortable playing while standing. JP apparently not one of them.
Yeah, that was actually one of the biggest complaints about us in studio from a lot of the players not being able to sit down as they're used to when they play and having to stand up. Well, here you go. I am JP going, I got used to it.
So we've seen potentially clone in both directions here from JP and Schwarzen.
Nice Lava Hound to get on top of that flying machine. What's going to be there to help with the flying machine on Schwarzen's side of the map?
And so you see pretty similar defensive sequences on both sides here.
Yep.
An almost identical, not quite slight lead here for Schwarzen in tower damage.
And that zap actually going to allow one shot to come in from that flying machine. So a really, really nice zap.
Schwarzen's been playing a lot in team environments, not just solo. Part of No Tilt League's, Team Liquid Academy's team for No Tilt League, where they took 3rd back in the spring. And then, of course, in CCS, the Clash Contender Series that we had back in 2019, took 1st place with the all-German squad of Existence. So a lot of top-tier semi-pro play for the German player.
IMJP could be in a little bit of trouble here. Having to cycle that bar barrel to get out so that he could get his flying machine back on the board made it so everything in defense was kind of played out of series.
And those Skeleton Dragons behind going to keep the pressure on JP here.
Yeah.
He's going to have to fireball, and still way down on both damage and elixir. 3 elixir lead for Schwarzen, 1296 remaining, and he just keeps the pressure on, knowing fireball's out of cycle.
Oh, I love that play. Miner to the back, Barb's up front. Now the barrel is going to come in and really mitigate a good amount of that damage, but another fireball in on Schwarzen's side of the map, and that was just clean.
That was absolutely clean. Final 40 seconds, 9:32 remaining on JP's left-hand tower. Schwarzen barely breaking a sweat so far.
Yeah, I mean, and this is definitely going to be a moment where JP's going to finally get some tower damage in, but the question is, will it be enough? And it really doesn't feel like it at this moment.
That's a nice flying machine low from JP to come out in support here. Miner to go in, so it is Miner Loon in both directions.
Yeah, that Lava Hound played really, really nicely in defense. Now going to help with those Lava Pups. Night Witch in the back to get on top of that Miner. Schwarzen's still in the driver's seat, but only by about 800 HP now.
Skeleton Dragons to try to clean up the rest of this. Flying Machine cycled way in the back as we go into sudden death overtime. JP still alive and putting some pressure on.
A little surprised to see that fireball there from JP. We'll see if Schwarzen wants to go with Barbs plus the Night Witch plus the Flying Machine right now behind this.
And the Flying Machine in front of the Lava Hound. Not what JP wanted. You see him kind of purse his lips there just a little bit. And that fireball is going to put Schwarzen in a great spot.
Yeah, and honestly, it wouldn't have even been as brutal had Schwarzen not played those Skeleton Dragons up at the exact same moment, clearing the Flying Machine completely off the board, and that opens up this damage coming in right now.
Beautiful miner zap to finish things off. Schwarzen played a pretty much perfect game there in his first outing for King of the Hill.
Agreed. I mean, you talk about those interactions that really changed the game, and it's a zap and a fireball difference. It's being super aggro when JP had to play things uncomfortably. It's also using his Lava Hound defensively as a perfect way to turn his defense into another counter push offensively. So Schwarzen playing the deck better, honestly, than I am JP.
I mean, this is really anyone's King of the Hill now. Ruben coming out for Queso next, but going to have to go through both Schwarzen and Air Surfer, and that's going to be very, very difficult. Kuchiku is the last guy there for Team Queso. Great. I mean, Schwarzen's done his job here. He's come out and gotten his win, even things up. After this, it's just icing on the cake.
Yeah, you know, and this is kind of something that we saw a decent amount out of Misfits in the spring. You know, they're a team that went to King of the Hill 3 separate times, one of which in playoffs, but their first 2 matches of the 4 that they played in the regular season both went to King of the Hill, which was the 3rd set. So it really is kind of anyone's game, like you said, in this moment. They're used to going to 3 sets.
You know, one thing Schwarzen did very, very well as we look at these replays is he knew when it was okay to go down to 0 elixir. He knew when it was okay to sell out. And that's a really important skill to have, knowing when it is a good moment. And that minor Barbs moment was a great one. He knew that he would get more out of selling out in that moment than JP would get defensively. And that was a huge swing in the game and a big win here for the German.
Yeah, and the other thing about that is he didn't really get a ton of damage off the Barbs plus the Miner, but what he did do was disrupt JP's cycle. So it became that cards that he really wanted to use to support his Lava Hound were now being forced to use defensively, like his Flying Machine. The Flying Machine being out of cycle earlier on really hindered his ability to break across the river, and then, as you pointed out during the match, that Flying Machine, when he finally got it back to where he needed it in cycle, he misplayed it in front of his Lava Hound, and there's really no coming back from that.
Yeah, maybe he thought that the Lava Hound could help that Flying Machine and get it on tower quickly enough, but wasn't the case. Flying Machine just gets completely evaporated, and now we're all tied up 1-1. But coming up next for Queso, their superstar, the guy who has been amazing throughout his competitive career, coming off of a huge win at the Bren Chong Cup Summer Edition, the guy who carried them to the No Tilt League Special Edition Championship, Ruben, one of the best in the business, and this is where you put your money. This is where Team Queso needs their superstar to step up. They would love him to come out and get 2 quick outs right now.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really big moment for Ruben. He's a guy that we've seen go really, really up and down in his professional career. Obviously, in 2019 in the fall, he was absolutely nutty. 67% in 2v2, 70% in 1v1, 70% in head-to-head, right? 69% overall, but then you look at what he did in the spring, and it was just a massive, massive drop-off in Team Queso's entire roster. I mean, his win rates, there's not one above 50 in the spring.
Yeah, I think the shortened season hurt him in that one. I think that the pressure of how often they went into the 1v1 set, which was second set that season, the pressure of those 1v1s, playing from behind consistently, might have gotten to him a little bit.
Yeah.
It was just a rough outing, and that was coming off of them being so good in that preseason other league. So it's very curious, but what he's been doing in the summer since then has been phenomenal. I'd be surprised if Ruben is not in perfect form coming into this fall split.
Agreed. You and I saw a machine a couple weekends ago.
Graveyard in, aggressive early from the Spaniard. Musketeer survives, and that's going to be tower down. Unbelievable. And that should be a GG well played early here for Ruben.
I mean, I'm so glad we sold it and then he delivered, because that, I mean, look at what Schwarzen has. He's got a tank, he's got high single target DPS, he's got splash damage, he's got a barrel and a poison. And somehow with all of that, Ruben took him out behind the barn and put him down.
Unbelievable. And now Barput over to the left-hand side, but Ruben can just kind of sit back, play some strong defense in this case, and of course a 2-tower game doesn't necessarily benefit Ruben over Schwarzen if we do get into a graveyard versus graveyard in that final minute or as we extend, but the likelihood of it getting there is very, very slim.
Yeah, it really feels like, as you've said many times, I think Ruben would just have to put his phone down to lose the game at this point.
So here we go, double elixir on its way. Bar putt set up in the back, and graveyard opposite lane here from Schwarzen. So interesting choice, probably the smart choice to go with, but
wow.
Poison with the Musketeer will clean that up pretty easily.
That interaction was just immaculate. It was the heal spirit to kill the baby dragon with the sliver of HP, recognizing where the tower was going to focus on, which was the skeletons, and then the last second Musketeer to mitigate 100% of the damage. It doesn't get any cleaner than that.
Well, and that's Ruben's gameplay. It's clean.
Yeah.
This is a typically a no mistake player, which, you know, you can't say that for everybody, even at this high level. And this was a pretty easy win for the Team Queso player in his opening King of the Hill game.
Yeah, I mean, a no-mistakes player is just a very, very Clash Royale way of saying consistent, right? And that's the thing that we talk about in any sport, any pro athlete. The reason you're best in the world is because you are consistently the best in the world. And if Ruben is a guy that consistently doesn't make mistakes, that is a horrifying guy to go up against.
I do love the choice there for Ruben to try to go for the 3 crown, recognizing that crowns will be important as we go down the stretch, whether it be trying to figure out if you make the top 6 for playoffs or trying to get tiebreakers for one of those top 2 first-round bye spots. So smart heads-up play by Ruben there, not to be content just to win, but to try to add that little extra for tiebreakers.
Yeah, and he does a really intelligent thing there as well as, you know, when you come into a 2-1 game with Graveyard, it can be really, really tough to create any sort of offensive presence. So you just find yourself playing defense over and over and over, maybe even for a minute and a half, and then all of a sudden you recognize your opponent has chipped your tower all the way down. Not only does he give a little tip of his hat to his team by trying to go for that 3 crown, he also makes it so Schwarzen cannot support another offensive push.
So game number 1 for Ruben's fall turn out with a 1-0, a nice win there for the Spaniard. Schwarzen came out, did his job, got the 1-1, and now it's all going to be on the shoulders of Air Surfer here in a couple of minutes, who's been in this spot many, many times before. But first, let's take a look at some of the action. And this is late. This is going to be, I believe, that defense on the right-hand side here in just a moment.
Yeah, so here we go. Barb Hut to the left. I believe defense coming up on the right. And, you know, this is a really tough spot for Air Surfer to be in. Actually, it looks like maybe we pulled the wrong replay, so we're going to just skip on ahead to the next match. Air Surfer needs to win 4 games in a row to win this out for Misfits. That is a really, really tall order, because what it means is it means beating Ruben, beating Kuchiku, and then beating Ruben 2 more times without dropping 1 game and burning 4 decks. That's a tall order for anyone.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really difficult either way, but Air Surfer, again, he's the guy, he has become so much more clutch in 2020. You go back to his performance clutching up in King of the Hill for Team USA in the No-Tilt Worlds, and what he did for Misfits last season as well. So this is a guy you can rely on in this position. Doesn't mean it's easy.
Yeah, so here we go. A ever important King of the Hill game number 4 for Misfits.
And that's Air Surfer's signature emote, the money pig, and minor wall breakers for Ruben.
Yeah, minor wall breakers. Wow. 1 wall breaker going to definitely connect here, and the aggressive plays by Ruben that are somehow also incredibly methodical and well thought out. It's just, I don't understand how he does it.
This is going to be a lot of Royal Giant damage on the left-hand side here for Air Surfer. Even with that E-Wiz down, should be 2 shots. So the lead goes the opposite direction. So a cool play from Ruben to open up with the split wall breakers and then minor to the cage to get 1 wall breaker connection. But that's a lot spent. Air Surfer punishes him in the left-hand lane.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is when you spend 5 elixir to start the game, if your opponent can respond cheaply as he did, then you can really open yourself up to be punished offensively.
Some well played, some respect in both directions, and first minute away, pretty much even 1873 to 1782.
Yeah, this is going to be a really fascinating game, again, when we get to double elixir time, because you know Ruben is going to make Air Surfer play on all parts of the board that he doesn't want to be in, and then it's going to be about when Air Surfer decides to get super aggressive with high Royal Giants.
And smart play, just pushing that poison to the right-hand side by cycling Muskie into the strong side tower. And here we go. Miner should go to the back, and it does with a nice
Wow.
cage pickup there by Air Surfer.
Yeah, really nice cage pickup there by Air Surfer. That is a 200 IQ play. Simple, but incredibly effective.
Does double duty, takes care of the recruit as well, and gonna Royal Giant one more time. And look at that. Brawler gets in front to distract with the Knight. Muskie goes to the bomb tower.
Yeah.
I think this will be enough DPS to stop that Royal Giant, though.
It is, but a lot of Elixir coming out here from Ruben. But that's the thing, is he can overspend on defense because his offense is so cheap.
Here we go. Double Elixir time on its way. Nice control there. One Musketeer shot on the right-hand side. And the Heal Spirit just not quite fast enough to keep that Skeleton Dragon on the board.
Yeah, that's a really nice trade there for Ruben.
Air Surfer took second place at the No Tilt World Championship this last summer, I guess you would call it. Going all the way to the World Finals, where he lost to Line, the champion, in the final match, but still getting second in the world in the solo tournament for Clash Royale this season. What an amazing performance it was for the American.
And one wall breaker not going to connect. A huge moment there for Air Surfer. Great defense, 1537 to 1710. This is a nail biter.
You see Air Surfer shaking his head a little bit here. Not liking some of what he sees, and here we go. Aggressive opposite lane, Royal Giant high, and not a lot here for Ruben to defend with.
No, but there is a decent amount going down that left-hand lane. There you see a high Goblin Cage going to play some really nice defense there, and the Royal Giant getting a few shots in on the right-hand side.
Final 90 seconds, Miner to the back, Skelly's high to work on those wall breakers. Going to go ahead and ignore that Miner, it looks like, and just try to push opposite direction. And Jack, you see him look off screen to somebody over there, my guess, maybe one of his teammates. Let that Miner do a little bit more than he wanted to. Maybe the Skeleton Dragons were a bit too high.
Yeah, definitely frustrating there to see a Miner take its full life away on the tower, but he's going to go for it again right now to try and get a massive push on the right-hand side.
Poison to the left to take care of the Musketeer and the Brawler. Royal Giant and to the right, and you see the Fireball Log combo trying to make some room for this RG.
And that was such a great use of Elixir on the left and right sides of the board there by Ruben to completely defend this to the utmost and still get his Miner back on the tower. It was the poison on the Muskie plus the Goblin that was, or the Goblin Brawler, that was really impressive for me.
Musketeer going to connect on the left-hand side here, going to make things very close, 1203 to 573. Air Surfer switching lanes back and forth, splitting his damage here. I don't know if he has enough time here, Andrew. He needs to get one more really great push. Probably has to go left-hand lane, and he will.
Yes, he does. Left-hand lane, Brawler up front, Fireball to get on top of that Ewiz, but that's going to leave the bomb tower open.
Oh, and the Log misses the 1 HP Ewiz. The only chance to go ahead and win this game disappears as that Ewiz hangs out, takes off his jacket,
wow,
and helps Ruben close out the game. Vamos, he says. Let's go. Big win there by Ruben to close things out.
A huge win by Ruben. So well played. He's like an android with his interactions. I gotta tell you, Air Surfer really gave him a run for his money, but Ruben truly impressed me with his plays.
Man, I don't think that getting that Ewiz off with the Log would have won the game for Air Surfer, but we're not going to know now. Just could not break through, but it certainly didn't help to have the Ewiz both DPSing and continuing to stun there as that Royal Giant tried to break through.
Yeah, and it's just really frustrating. You saw how much attention Air Surfer was always spending on picking up the Miner, whether it was a great pickup with a Goblin Cage, or if it was just Skellies and a Heal Spirit. The problem is every single time he was still able to at least get a couple shovel hits in from that Miner. It was relentless, and that's exactly what you need to do if you're playing the deck here that Ruben's rocking.
So here you go. You see the Fireball push the Ewiz, and it's just out of that Log range. And again, there's so much DPS on that Royal Giant that you don't think that maybe the Royal Giant would have broken through, but it's just one of those things where you see only 715. A couple of shots there maybe would have forced Ruben to spend some more on defense, potentially. It's just an unfortunate moment there for the American.
Yeah, and that's really the thing here. And a great win here from Team Queso. Kuchiku and Benny, who coming out. IMJP taking one down in King of the Hill, and Ruben closing things out. Actually, the only squad we've seen today take a win with all of their players playing. And that was, one of the things about what Ruben did there at the end of that game was just he controlled it from the beginning to the end, and he never had a problem with kind of sacrificing what idea he had early on, whether it was switching lanes, whether it was how he was going to defend. It was just about always having a new way to keep Air Surfer on his toes.
Well, that's what Ruben does, and you see him going with more higher cycle decks. And Air Surfer also tends to play more higher cycle decks, this one being on the higher side, faster side for RG historically overall. But Ruben chooses decks typically that allow you to outplay. Yeah. And that's what a lot of the young players do, why you see Mortar being so popular, why you see Hog Cycle and Loon Cycle so popular right now, minor wall breakers as well. This is a thing that Ruben can do. He can outplay you, and that high cycle, the fast cycle decks, make that a bigger possibility.
So a really interesting day one here, and honestly, it's a big credit to our match format. Moving King of the Hill back into the second spot, I think really kind of changed a lot of things. We saw a lot more matches earlier in the season in the spring going to that third and final set, but today we saw 3-2-0 sweeps and a lot of struggles from rookies. Now, it's day one. I'm going to give them a pass. It's day one, match one, but really, what do they need to do between now and their next match to change what really looked like, I guess, nerves?
Look, you gotta have your first game sometime, right? Yep. You gotta have your first shot at some point, and hopefully getting it out of the way. Now they know what to expect, and that's a big thing, right? Is knowing what it feels like to get out there for the first time and getting that done, getting that under your belt. So hopefully now they can settle down a little bit. We have a lot of rookies coming back out tomorrow, because remember, Pain and Misfits both play again tomorrow. Yeah. So all 6 of those rookies coming back out again. Hopefully they can regroup, take some deep breaths, and come out knowing what to expect this time.
Now, an interesting thing about our day, Rich, was how we started it, which was Team Liquid going up against CRB. And honestly, Liquid only picking up one game there with Canario and Razor in 2v2, their first game. What does that spell for Team Liquid moving forward?
I mean, again, Team Liquid, we've seen them fall early. And anytime someone says Liquid washed, Liquid doesn't have it, I always say, okay, tell me that in a few weeks, right? Tell me that when we see something later. I think that they're a strong mental team. They have a great coach in Eric Benamou, and I would be surprised if they don't come back out next weekend in full form.
All right, so here we go. We will have standings for you, obviously, when a little bit more of the season has progressed. But how about we look at what we're doing tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. here on the West Coast, 1 p.m. in the East. It's going to be Dignitas facing off against SK Gaming, Tribe going up against Chivas Esports, and then, as you said, Rich, our 2 squads, 6 rookies apiece, or excuse me, 6 rookies in total, going to face off again to close out the day. Misfits and Pain Gaming getting their second match in here in week 1.
Yeah, that's going to be a really interesting match. Obviously, someone is going to start off the season 0-2 now, with both of those squads taking L's. And I'm curious to see how they fare in the 2v2. Do we see crisp 2v2 from the 2 pairs of rookies, or do we see the 2v2 team win based off of which one makes the fewer mistakes? I'm very curious to see how they come back out tomorrow.
Yeah, and I think for Pain Gaming, it becomes a much more, I guess, psychological loss if they start 0-2 because they are all rookies. That's when you start to go, should we even be here? What are the coaches thinking? What is the staff thinking? Was this a mistake? Do we belong? All of that goes in the mind of people that, and of course they do. 0-2 is something that happens to tons of squads. Whereas if you look at the other side in Misfits, having the experience of Air Surfer and Wings, who have honestly had some really up and down seasons in their career, it's much easier, I think, for them to stay confident and go, look, guys, this isn't the spring. We're not halfway through our matches, okay? We're 20% of the way through our matches. We've got a lot more time to prove ourselves. So I think tomorrow we'll see what happens in match 1 and 2. Pain Gaming has to win match 3 for their confidence moving forward.
So here's the big question for you. We saw a lot of great performances today. Who is your player of the day? We had St. Bellican with his 3-0 sweep. We had RF going 5-1, 2v2, and King of the Hill, and a hard King of the Hill on top of that one. Yeah. And then, of course, we had what Ruben just did. I'm going to go ahead and save mine. I think that RF is player of the day here on our opening Saturday.
I'm going to have to agree. I mean, it's really hard to say it's anyone else. I think probably my honorable mention does go to St. Belican. I think what he did coming out today cold, going 1-2-3 on Surgical Goblin, Razor, and Igor. Maybe that actually, you know what? I'm gonna retract my vote. I'm expecting RF to do that. I really am. Was I expecting Belican to do that today? I really wasn't. Is he good? Yeah, he's really good. Is he good enough to sweep Team Liquid? I wasn't sure, but he definitely is. So he's actually going to take my MVP for Saturday.
All right, well, let us know. Maybe the Esports Royale Twitter will put out a poll here. Who's your vote for MVP? We have 2 nominations in St. Belican and the God RF. And with Ruben clutching that out, let's go ahead and throw Ruben on there as well. I'm telling the Twitter team what to do. I don't know if you'll do it or not, but go ahead. If not, then go ahead and add us and tell us who you think is the MVP of the day. And make sure you come back tomorrow. And Andrew, to make sure they come back tomorrow, what should they do maybe with the YouTube account they're watching right now?
Oh, yeah. Turn on notifications, please. YouTube and Twitch. That way you'll know exactly when we go live tomorrow morning. What an amazing match day 1. Rich, I had a hell of a time.
It was amazing. Sweep City all over. We're back here again tomorrow, 10 a.m. in the West, 1 p.m. in the East, 7 p.m. Central European summertime. See you then.